Black and White, by Liu Jiming, translated by Chen. Part 2, Volume 3, Chapter 1. 1. Master. When Wugong first ascended Xiaolong Mountain more than a decade ago, he gazed far and wide, seeing verdant trees and crisscrossing fields. Phoenix Island was like a piece of warm, translucent jade floating on the vast expanse of azure Niangzhu Lake. At that moment, his soul, like a bird, flew out of his body, gently flapping its wings, riding the wind above Phoenix Island. That feeling of freedom, of dominion over everything, was like a king surveying his land. A bold idea sprouted in his mind. If he could establish himself on Phoenix Island, he would undoubtedly build a Wugong Shrine to commemorate Yu. He had always revered Yu as his ancestor. At that time, in the eyes of the people of Phoenix Island, Wugong was just an itinerant quack doctor with no fixed abode. Many people were skeptical about his experiences practicing on Pigu Mountain and his ancestral secret recipe for treating infertility. He could only barely make a living by selling plasters for sprains and tonics to strengthen the spleen. He built a simple house on the ruins of the Guanyin Temple on Xiaolong Mountain just to have a place to live. During the day, he descended the mountain to practice medicine and gather herbs. At night, he practiced alchemy while reading by candlelight. Besides the Yellow Emperor's Inner Classic, he often read a book called The Wugong Secret Manual. This unusual book, attributed to Yu, purportedly records the secrets of cultivating Yuanji Gong. Legend had it that Yu had secluded himself on Pigu Mountain for 10 years, and after mastering Yuanji Gong, he had attained enlightenment and become immortal. He believed that his own attainment of immortality was not far off. He had experienced several turning points in his turbulent life, and each time he was at his wits' end with no way out. The real turning point began after he met Island Lord Nie Changhai. Nie Changhai was the village secretary of Phoenix Island. He found the title Secretary awkward and thought Island Lord sounded better. Besides, the village secretary was the highest leader on Phoenix Island, and his word was law, so wasn't he the Island Lord? The Island Lord was burly with a square face, flawed only by a few pockmarks. The Island Lord's wife was a pretty woman named Xiaoman, more than 10 years younger than the Island Lord, with skin as fair and ruddy as a ripe cherry. The couple had been married for over 10 years but had no children. The Island Lord had taken his wife to big hospitals in Niangzhu County and the provincial capital, but to no avail. The Island Lord often sighed for this reason, and when he was drunk, he would lock his wife, Xiaoman, at home and beat her. Xiaoman was bruised and battered by her husband, but she dared not speak out. The man was the most prominent official on the island, and she couldn't ruin his reputation. Later, the Island Lord heard that a doctor surnamed Wu, who could treat infertility, had come to the island, so he specially invited him to his home, had his wife prepare a table of delicious dishes, and brought out a jar of vintage wine. Wugong had long heard that the Island Lord's wife was a great cook and had secretly regretted that he didn't have the good fortune to taste her cooking. During the meal, Wugong told the Island Lord about his legendary experiences as a military doctor in the nationalist and communist armies. I not only met Chiang Kai-shek, but also treated Madame Chiang. Who is Madame Chiang? Madame Chiang is Chiang Kai-shek's wife, Sung Mei-ling. Oh, Chiang Kai-shek's wife. Isn't she Sung Qingling's sister? Yes, that's her. Wugong said with emotion. In my life, I have never seen a more beautiful, noble, and magnanimous woman than Madame Chiang. The Island Lord took a sip of wine, squinting his eyes as he asked, You defected from the nationalist army to the communist army. Why didn't you continue to work in the army? Wugong lowered his head, took a small sip of wine, and hesitated. It's a long story. Better not to mention it. Wugong's alcohol tolerance was much lower than the Island Lord's. After not drinking much, he already felt tipsy. Taking advantage of the drinking mood, Wugong performed his unique skill of retrieving objects from the air. He had learned this magic trick from a street performer while traveling. He stretched out his hands into the air, chanting and making gestures, constantly changing his hand positions. In the blink of an eye, a green snake more than 2 feet long was caught in his hand. The island lord was dumbfounded, standing up from the table in panic. The island lord's wife was also frightened and fled from the table. It wasn't until Wu Bozhong put the snake back into his sleeve that the island lord and his wife, still in shock, returned to the table. After eating and drinking their fill, Wu Bozhong took the pulses of the island lord and his wife. "Blocked. Taking elixirs will clear them. Once you clear them, everything will be smooth," he muttered, taking his fingers from the island lord's wife Xiaoman's wrist. The island lord looked at him suspiciously and asked, "Is there something wrong with me or her?" Wu Bozhong shook his head mysteriously. "The secrets of heaven cannot be revealed. Island Lord, if your wife doesn't conceive 3 months after taking my elixir, I will leave Phoenix Island." He glanced at the pretty face of the island lord's wife, Xiaoman, who was full of anxiety, and stopped talking as if he were hiding some unspeakable secret. More than 3 months later, the island lord's wife, Xiaoman, was indeed pregnant. 7 months later, she gave birth to a chubby baby boy weighing 6 pounds, 8 ounces. Almost everyone on the island came to congratulate them. Wu Bozhong was also treated as a great benefactor by the island lord and invited to a banquet for 2 consecutive days. Xiaoman was not the first case of infertility that Wu Bozhong had cured since arriving on Phoenix Island, but due to the influence and prestige of island lord Nie Changhai, Wu Bozhong's reputation on Phoenix Island significantly increased, and he became a well-known miracle doctor. In the word-of-mouth tales of the islanders, not only could the elixirs he made cure infertility, but he could also retrieve snakes from the air, fly over walls, and predict the future. Some people even said they had personally seen him walking on the lake, as light as a swallow. It took him less than half an hour to get from the island to Niangzhou County, faster than the speed of the motorboats. Such stories spread with such detail that people couldn't help but believe them. Wu Bozhong began to open an altar on Xiaolong Mountain to preach and teach the Yuanji Great Law. Initially, people from the island sought him out to become his disciples and learn the law. Gradually, people from Niangzhou County and even the more distant provincial capital came, having heard of his name. All over the county town's train station and the Niangzhou Lake Pier, people were hawking the Wugong secret manual, which he had printed at a small printing factory in the county town. It had a yellow cover, and the paper and printing were very rough, costing 2 yuan per copy. Almost everyone who came to Phoenix Island had one. The dilapidated Guanyin Temple became a bustling hub, attracting people in droves who sought to become disciples and learn the law. Xiaolong Mountain became a sacred place of the Yuanji Great Law, and Wu Bozhong was no longer just a doctor but had transformed into Master Wu. One day, Wu Bozhong said to Island Lord Nie Changhai, "More and more people are cultivating the Great Law. I want to build a house on the mountain." "Build it! The entire mountain is my chicken farm. The contract rights will remain unchanged for 30 years. There is no need to discuss it in a village committee meeting. What I say goes. You can build as big as you want." Nie Changhai boldly pointed to Xiaolong Mountain, drawing a big circle with his finger, and readily agreed. "Your Yuanji Great Law has made our Phoenix Island famous. Officially and privately, I should fully support you." Wu Bozhong thought that the island lord was returning the favor because he had cured his wife's infertility, so the blueprint for the Wugong Shrine, which had been brewing in his mind for a long time, clearly emerged. 2. Godson. Wu Bozhong told Du Wei, his godson who worked in the provincial capital, about his plan to build the Wugong Shrine. Du Wei stood on Phoenix Mountain, looking around at the surrounding broken walls and ruins, and said, "Godfather, now not only the Niangzhou district, but even the provincial capital has people cultivating your Yuanji Gong. In their eyes, you are a master. How can a master live in such a shabby house? You must have a decent manner. Yes, a manor. If we're going to build it, let's build a manor. Rich people all love living in villa manors now." A manor. Wu Bozhong was startled by this word, thinking about how many elixirs and copies of the Wugong secret manual he would have to sell to the students who cultivated Yuanji Gong to afford to build a manor. Du Wei seemed to see his worries and waved his hand, saying, "You don't need to worry about the money. I'll figure out a way." Wu Bozhong found Du Wei's confident, imposing expression very familiar, especially those eagle eyes, almost identical to his when he was young, extremely shrewd and ambitious, with an undisguised cunning worldliness, recklessness, and even a fierce energy. At that moment, Wu Bozhong was a little dazed, as if he had returned to the quiet courtyard on Wenjing Street in the south gate of Chuzhou many years ago. As a traveling doctor, his success in capturing the heart of Miss Jan and seizing her affections could be likened to a modern version of "the oil peddler occupies the top courtesan." Of course, what Wu Bozhong was most proud of was not the act of seizing her affections itself, but the fruit of his love with Miss Jan. He had recalled countless times the scene of himself and Miss Jan hugging and crying after Du Fu, the valid owner of the courtyard, had drowned himself. "It's just a pity for Du Wei. He doesn't even know who his biological father is." "Do you mean to tell him the truth?" "No, absolutely not. We cannot tell the child now, but we also cannot tell him the truth in the future. We can't let the child bear the shame we brought him. The Du family has had a single heir for 3 generations, and the incense will be cut off with him. Du Fu was counting on Du Wei to pass on the family line to him. I can't let Du Fu's wish fall through. Du Wei will always be a descendant of the old Du family." Seeing Miss Jan's resolute attitude, Wu Bozhong was silent for a while, then put his arm around her shoulder, solemnly saying, as if swearing an oath, "Miss, I swear to you that I will not let you and the child suffer, and I will not let you have a hard life." A bitter smile appeared on the corner of Miss Jan's mouth. "For so many years, only old Du has called me Miss. I'm not used to you calling me that. You can still call me Jan Rong." His eagle eyes stared straight at Jan Rong, like awls, and Miss Jan seemed a little scared. "Old Wu, that's not what I meant." He looked at Jan Rong with a gloomy gaze and said, "I understand what you mean, and I know that you look down on me, this itinerant doctor, miss. However, people's luck is similar to a country's luck. I won't be an itinerant doctor forever. I've seen the hexagram. My era and my son's era will come someday. You must believe me." His words had a strange magic. Miss Jan closed her eyes and moaned as if in a dream. "I believe." Over the years, whenever Wu Bozhong recalled this scene, his heart would stir up ripples like a stagnant pond, and a burst of heat would run through his body. Du Wei grew up day by day from a naive child, and his eyebrows and expressions gradually became more like his own. Whenever Du Wei called him Godfather, he would feel a strong urge, "Don't call me Godfather. You are my biological son. Call me Dad, child." But whenever the words came to his lips, he would force himself to swallow them back. "No, I can't violate the oath I swore to Miss back then." He shook his head resolutely. "In any case, Du Wei is my son. This fact will never change," Wu Bozhong thought. Sometimes he felt that there was a kind of tacit understanding between him and Du Wei that only fathers and sons had. This is probably what is said to be the adage, "blood is thicker than water." For example, Du Wei supported his plan to build the Wugong Shrine without hesitation. That confident and heroic statement, even exceeding his expectations for his current realistic conditions, made him realize that Du Wei was no longer the teenager he had once educated and enlightened. He was a mature man in all aspects. How could I forget that he is now the president of a magazine in the provincial capital? Thinking of this, he smiled mockingly. "Godfather, don't you believe me?" Seeing Wu Bozhong laughing to himself, Du Wei thought that Godfather didn't believe in his strength and frowned. "To tell you the truth, I'm preparing to discuss a cooperation project with the leaders of the Niangzhu district. Once it's completed, it will drive the magazine's development and bring about earth-shaking changes to Phoenix Island. At that time, let alone building a small manor for you, you can have whatever you want on the entire island." In the past, Wu Bozhong would have thought that Du Wei was having a dream. But now, he didn't doubt it at all. After all, didn't he also have similar dreams when he was young? Dreams he couldn't realize didn't mean his son couldn't know them. In this sense, Due had caught up with a good era. I believe you. How could I not believe you? Like a father, Wubojong said in a loving tone, I was just thinking that after the house is built, I would bring your mother to the island to live for a while. He stopped in time, fearing that he would reveal the secret between him and Miss if he continued to speak. Due left a pile of food and drinks and left. Whether for business trips or personal visits, Due would bring many things from the provincial capital every time he came to Phoenix Island. Due was very considerate to him, this godfather. Wubojong watched Due's figure walking down the mountain, faintly hearing someone say in his ear, Old Wu, you should be content. It was a Miss voice. Wubojong suddenly looked around. Besides the wind, sand, and leaves being swept up by the wind on the mountain, he couldn't see a single figure. Oh, he was hallucinating again. This was a common symptom of entering a particular state while practicing the Yuanji Great Law. 3. The Eldest Disciple. Due returned to Phoenix Island with a stranger a few days after winter. At that time, Wubojong was sitting quietly in meditation in the meditation room. Quiet sitting was the most important way to practice Yuanji Gong, similar to the meditation of monks, except that he didn't have to chant scriptures like Buddhists. Yuanji Gong pursued the flow of qi and blood, the combination of body and spirit, and the unity of man and nature. Sitting quietly can help eliminate turbid and filthy substances in the body while absorbing the essence of qi between heaven and earth. Going out and coming in was the process of people detaching themselves from their bodies and worldly thoughts and constantly ascending upwards. Of course, not everyone who practiced Yuanji Gong could obtain this ascension. The Wugong Secret Manual divided cultivation levels into several grades, with the highest being the 9th grade, which, in Taoist terms, represented enlightenment and immortality. In reality, very few people could cultivate to the 9th grade. Their strength would be great to reach the 7th or 8th grade. The Wugong Secret Manual referred to these practitioners as Fa Shi, which was equivalent to the title of high monks in Buddhism. According to Wubojong's understanding, Yu was an enlightened immortal, while he could, at best, be considered a Fa Shi. Godfather, let me introduce you. This is my friend Zong Tianyi, President Zong. Due said, President Zong used to be in the coal business, but now he's switched to real estate. He has developed buildings in Chuzhou and the provincial capital. Wubojong exhaled a long breath before slowly opening his eyes. He noticed that the visitor was approximately 30 years old, with a sharp nose, a dignified demeanor, and a pair of rare blue eyes among the Han Chinese. His suit and shoes were high-end brands, and a large gold ring on his ring finger shone brightly in the room's dim light. High nose, blue eyes. Wubojong suddenly felt that this person looked familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Just as he was puzzled, Due said again, Godfather, President Zong is from Pai Town. We've known each other for a long time. Have you forgotten? He even came to the clinic for treatment. It wasn't me who got treatment. It was my mother, Zong Tianyi corrected with a strong Pai Town accent. Oh, is that so? Let me think. Wubojong shook his head vaguely. Opening a clinic in Pai Town was many years ago. He had treated so many people. How could he remember them all? He stood up from the meditation cushion and used his hand to flick off a blade of grass that was stuck to his cotton robe. His cotton robe was made of native cloth from Phoenix Island. It was vast, thick, and warm, and its style was similar to the Taoist robes worn by Taoists. Yuanji Gong drew from Taoism in many aspects, revering Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi as their masters. In fact, the books he usually read the most included the Tao Te Ching and the Zhuangzi. Due went out to answer a phone call, and only the two were left in the meditation room. Wubojong sat at a long table in the center of the meditation room. The long table and several chairs were the items left over from the old temple and were very simple. The tabletop had cracked, and there was a thermos and several rough teacups, which were also very simple. He picked up the thermos and poured water into the cups. Just as he had filled 3 cups, the thermos was empty. It was still the water that had been boiled the night before, and it was already a bit cool. "Sit down, please have some tea," he said. But Zhong Tianyi didn't intend to sit down. "Dr. Wu, do you remember me?" Hearing the address, Dr. Wu, Wu Bozhong couldn't help but tremble. He raised his face and a beam of light shot towards him, like an X-ray, very penetrating. It had been a long time since anyone had called me that, he thought, and the shadow of a woman gradually emerged in his mind. She was one of the few women he had ever met who haunted his dreams, even if she was a madwoman. Since then, he had never seen such a beautiful madwoman again. At that time, his attention was all focused on that woman and his patient, and he hadn't paid attention to the boy. Many years had passed, and he had long since forgotten that woman. He never expected that the dignified man standing before him was the same boy he had known back then. "I remember now," he said calmly. "I'm very sorry that I didn't cure your mother's illness. At that time, my power was not enough, and I was unable to remove the demonic miasma from her body. If it were now, it would be a different story." His words sounded like an explanation and an apology. Doctors can only cure diseases in a person's body, but if a person is sick in their heart, medical skills are powerless. They can only rely on other forces, such as the Yuanji Great Law. The slightly scrutinizing and questioning gaze in Zhong Tianyi's eyes gradually softened. He sat down at the table. "I came today for this reason, Master." Hearing Zhong Tianyi utter the word master, Wu Bozhong's previously uneasy heart felt much more at ease. "I have been practicing, but I can never grasp the key," Zhong Tianyi said, taking out a worn-out copy of the Wugong secret manual from his alligator skin handbag and handing it over. Wu Bozhong took the roughly printed booklet, put it aside without looking at it, and cast his gaze toward Zhong Tianyi, pausing at that familiar face. Like many wealthy people, that face was well-maintained, round, and fair, revealing an almost feminine delicacy that reminded him of the madwoman he had seen in the clinic. Zhong Tianyi's body was slightly plump, his belly bulging slightly, stretching the hem of his suit wide open. As a man in his 30s, he had gained a bit of weight too early. Moreover, his yin-tang was dark, his eyes were floating and unfocused, he was listless, and he looked constantly sleep-deprived. Cultivating the Yuanji Great Law can't rely solely on skills. You also have to rely on your mentality. No matter how much you practice, it will be useless if something is wrong with your mentality. Wu Bozhong said, "Some people cultivate for a lifetime and still linger at the lower levels. Some individuals can achieve higher levels in a remarkably short time. All of this depends on good fortune." According to this, most people who are now cultivating Yuanji Great Law cannot enter the high level you mentioned, right? This question was too direct, and Wu Bozhong didn't answer immediately. After pondering for a moment, he said, "That's right. Everything in the world is like that. Only a few people enter the highest level, just like the rich are a minority in any society." Zhong Tianyi obviously agreed with his words. After a moment of silence, he asked, "So, what are the signs of entering the high level?" "After Yuanji Gong Great Law is cultivated to the 7th level or above, the sky eye will be opened." Sky eye? What is the sky eye? Everyone has a pair of invisible eyes besides these visible eyes. Wu Bozhong stroked the non-existent beard on his chin and smiled slightly. Visible eyes look at tangible things, invisible eyes look at intangible things, and they can even enter another world or freely travel between 2 worlds, transcending life and death. "Does another world really exist?" Zhong Tianyi asked impatiently. "What does it look like?" "The secrets of heaven cannot be revealed," Wu Bozhong said. "I can only tell you that that world is like the Buddhist paradise. All the troubles of the human world no longer exist, and only joy remains." "It sounds similar to what Buddhism and Christianity talk about," Zhong Tianyi said to himself. "Those Buddhists I've met are full of thoughts about getting promoted and making a fortune, And as for Christians, they only think about being able to enter heaven after death. I am very disappointed, because I hope to live without being burdened by money and fame, without fear of death, and to be as happy as those enlightened masters in legends, as if I were living in heaven, which is what you call another world. I'm not afraid of you laughing at me, but I am more afraid of death now than ever before. When I think that death can take away everything I have at any time, including my life, wealth, and relatives, I feel completely despondent and feel that life has lost any meaning. I am exhausted every day, despite making a lot of money. What's the use of that? Once death comes, they are just a pile of waste paper. Zhang Tianyi lowered his head, looking unusually depressed. I have seen many people, rich and not rich, and they have all encountered the same confusion as you, Wu Bozhong said in a preaching tone. The purpose of Yuanjigong is to allow people to transcend life and death and obtain eternal life in the mortal world by constantly practicing removing diseases, sorrows, and greed from the body and brain, and no longer being tempted by inexhaustible money and desires. The human heart is like a pair of wings. Too much money is a burden, which will only increase and prevent you from ascending to a higher level. Just like death, the more afraid you are, the more it will approach you until it completely dominates your life. For every Yuanji Gong practitioner who has reached the level of opening the sky eye, there has never been any real death because nothing will die. All that exists is a change of form. Life is transformed from one form to another. When a person dies, he should be happy with everyone related to him because he only dies on the surface. From our side, it seems as if he is dying, but from the other side, he is being born. No death is a real death because every death opens a new door. It is a beginning. Life is endless, and there will always be a new beginning, only in a different form. Death can even bring you a kind of pleasure similar to a sexual climax. As long as you are united with one person, it can bring you infinite joy. So how much joy will there be to be one with the infinite one? Wu Bozhong spoke incessantly, like chanting scriptures. His voice echoed in the low and dilapidated meditation room like bees buzzing in a hive. The content he was talking about came from a book by the Indian theologian Osho, which he was currently reading. For Zhang Tianyi, it was a bit obscure. Do you think I can reach the level you mentioned, the level of opening the sky eye? Zhang Tianyi interrupted him and asked. Wu Bozhong didn't expect the other party to ask this question so directly. After hesitating for a moment, he cautiously replied, "If there is the guidance of a wizard, reaching this level is not difficult." His words sounded a bit ambiguous, but he could only answer like this for an uninvited visitor. Zhang Tianyi carefully savored his words as if he had understood something. He suddenly stood up from the chair, grabbed his hand, and kowtowed. "Master, then I will take you as my teacher." Wu Bozhong held that slightly hot hand and said, "Many people seek me out to cultivate the Yuanji Great Law, but I have never taken a personal disciple. Since we have met before by fate, and you are Du Wei's friend, I will take you as my eldest disciple." At this moment, Du Wei returned to the room after answering the phone and happened to see this scene. He smiled. "Ha ha, President Zhang has officially taken my godfather as his teacher." He winked. "Since you are taking him as your teacher, shouldn't there be an initiation gift?" Before his voice fell, Zhang Tianyi took a check from his handbag and presented it to Wu Bozhong with both hands. "Master, this is a token of your disciple's respect. Please accept it with a smile." Before Wu Bozhong could reach out to take it, Du Wei had already taken the check. "Ah, President Zhang, your initiation gift is really heavy." After speaking, he handed the check over and said with a grin, "Godfather, is this money enough for you to build the Wugong Shrine?" Wu Bozhong suddenly felt that all of this was a play that Du Wei had arranged, and he had only confusedly played a role that he was good at, just like the roles they had played in Pai Town many years ago. Realizing this, Wu Bozhong felt increasingly that Du Wei was like himself when he was young. "Godfather, Old Ni just called and said he wants to treat us to dinner," Du Wei said, pointing to Zong Tianyi. "Old Ni wants to get to know President Zong. We are just accompanying guests." Old Ni was Island Lord Ni Changhai. The last time Du Wei came to Phoenix Island, the Island Lord invited him to his house for a meal, and Du Wei praised the dishes made by the Island Lord's wife, Xiaomen. The Island Lord's son was already 1 year old. The Island Lord was happy all day long, smiling at everyone and full of energy. In recent years, whenever an entrepreneur came to the Island Lord would fawn over them, saying that he was paving the way for Phoenix Island to attract investment. Wu Bozhong's plan to build the Wugong Shrine was probably also regarded by the Island Lord as part of attracting investment. 4. Wugong Shrine. In less than a year, the Wugong Shrine was completed. It was a typical Tang Dynasty-style building. Although it had only 3 stories, it was quite imposing because it was situated on the ruins of the Guanyin Temple, the highest point of Xiaolong Mountain. The roof was large and gable-shaped, looking like a magnificent waterfall from a distance. The roof surface was gentle and far-reaching, and the eaves were high and upturned, like an eagle spreading its wings to fly. The roof tiles were made of 3 kinds: gray tiles, black tiles, and glazed tiles, which were very layered. The walls were constructed with stones and bricks and painted in 3 colors: red, cyan, and blue, corresponding to different orientations. This symbolized the status of the Tang Dynasty princes and nobles. According to legend, after Wu Zutian became emperor, she conferred the title of Duku of Wu on Yu. At that time, Yu was living in seclusion on Pigu Mountain, cultivating the Yuanji Great Law. He did not formally accept the title conferred by his daughter, Empress Wu. However, people still habitually called him Wugong. After Wugong attained enlightenment and became immortal, the Beishou Temple, built by later generations on Pigu Mountain, also adopted the regulations of the Tang Dynasty princes' mansions. However, the Beishou Temple was destroyed in the turmoil caused by the rebel king Li Zicheng at the end of the Ming Dynasty, and few people know its actual appearance. However, a sketch of the Beishou Temple in the Wugong Secret Manual was drawn by the Ming Dynasty painter Bada Shanren. It was included when later generations re-edited the Wugong Secret Manual, but the painting was too simple, and it was difficult for people to see the full picture of the Beishou Temple. Today, the Ming Dynasty stone-carved version of the Wugong Secret Manual has been lost to the common people. The copy in Wu Bozhong's possession was still one he had obtained from an old itinerant doctor. To build the Wugong Shrine, he had Du Wei create a copy of the sketch from the book and give it to the architectural designer. The final design was primarily based on the sketch by Bada Shanren. The Provincial Architectural Design Institute designed the Wugong Shrine. The institute's president was the executive director of Popular Arts magazine and was naturally very familiar with Du Wei. He charged only half of the design fee. The construction unit was the Provincial Construction 6th Company, which Du Wei also contacted. To build the Wugong Shrine, Du Wei mobilized all his personal connections, which made Wu Bozhong realize his son's power for the first time. After the Wugong Shrine was completed, a grand opening ceremony and the unveiling ceremony of the China Yuanji Culture Research Association were held. That morning, the sun shone brightly, colorful flags flew on Xiaolong Mountain, people chatted, and the sound was deafening, crowded with islanders who had come to witness the excitement. The entrance to the Wugong Shrine was filled with colorful flower baskets. The honor guard, composed of students from Phoenix Elementary School, lined up in neat rows playing the music of "Today is a Good Day," while raising their flowers in the air to the guests attending the ceremony, rhythmically shouting, "Welcome, welcome, warmly welcome." In addition to an old leader from the Nyangzhou district, the guests who attended the opening and unveiling ceremonies also included Vitsu District Chief Lang, who was in charge of cultural education and tourism. The old leader was the former county magistrate of Nyangzhou County, surnamed Huo, known as Old Huo. He was also a practitioner of the Yuanji Great Law and had invited Wu Bozhong to his home to give him special guidance. When the Yuanji Culture Research Association was established, Wu Bozhong hired Old Huo as its honorary president. This time, when he invited him to attend the opening ceremony of the Wugong Shrine, Old Huo readily agreed and arrived early in the morning. Accompanying Old Huo to the island was President Bao of Nyangzhou Normal School. President Bao was the Yuanji Culture Research Association's vice president and a practitioner of the Yuanji Great Law. He had invited Wu Bozhong to Nyangzhou Normal School to report on the guidance of the Yuanji Great Law practice. As the primary donor of the Wugong Shrine, Zhong Tianyi also attended today's opening ceremony. Today, he was not wearing a suit but a Chinese-style jacket. He was holding a young woman wearing a cheongsam and looking very energetic. He walked up to Wu Bozhong and respectfully called out, "Master." Wu Bozhong was very polite to this eldest disciple, cupping his hands in greeting and saying, "President Zhong, your complexion is much improved compared to last time." He remembered the huge sum of money that Zhong Tianyi had donated and did not treat the other party as a disciple. However, Zhong Tianyi was very serious and said, "Master, please don't call me President Zhong, just call me Tianyi." "Oh, okay, Tianyi." Wu Bozhong nodded and changed his address accordingly, turning his attention to the woman next to Zhong Tianyi. "This is my wife," Zhong Tianyi introduced. "Meng Fei, this is my master. Just call him Master." Meng Fei raised her long eyelashes and called out, "Master!" Hearing this delicate shout, Wu Bozhong shivered involuntarily, his eyes stopping on Meng Fei. Meng Fei had a wasp waist and long legs, a beautiful face like a flower, and exuded a dizzying, youthful energy. Wu Bozhong had been living in the countryside for a long time and had not seen a woman from a big city as beautiful as this for a long time. He couldn't control himself a bit, as if he had taken some poisonous Chinese herbal medicine, feeling dizzy and unable to move his legs as if they were filled with lead. He was like this every time he met a beauty, like this when he was young, and still like this when he was old. Du Wei had told him that Zhong Tianyi had remarried, and his current wife was a singer and dancer more than 10 years younger than him. They had been married for several years, but had no children. "Godfather, help President Zhong, otherwise his vast wealth will have no one to inherit." Du Wei's words were somewhat ambiguous and even joking. As the saying goes, no one knows a son better than his father. Similarly, no one knows a father better than his son. He couldn't hide any secrets from Du Wei. It was like this when he opened a clinic in Pai Town. As Miss said, he taught this, so who could he blame? He groaned twice like he had a toothache. "Master, what's wrong with you?" Zhong Tianyi asked in surprise when he saw his face turn pale. Oh, it's nothing. I'll go accompany Old Huo and President Bao." He walked towards Old Huo and President Bao as if escaping something. The guests had almost arrived except for Vitsu District Chief Lang, Du Wei, and Island Lord Nie Changhai. This morning, a signing ceremony for the Phoenix Island Tourist Resort was held. The Nyangzhou district government was focusing on supporting this project, and Popular Arts Magazine and the Phoenix Island Village Committee were both partners. For this project, Du Wei had been running back and forth between the provincial capital, the Nyangzhou district, and Phoenix Island for nearly half a year, expending considerable effort. It wasn't until almost noon that Vitsu District Chief Lang appeared at the Wugong Shrine opening ceremony, accompanied by Du Wei and Island Lord Nie Changhai. Wu Bozhong had heard Du Wei mention Vitsu District Chief Lang many times, and knew that this vice district chief was a returned PhD and had been the youngest philosophy professor at Dongjiang University. Later, he abandoned literature and went into politics, becoming the vice district chief of Nyangzhou district in charge of culture, education, and tourism. Du Wei said that Vitsu district chief Lang was a cadre cultivated as part of the third echelon and was highly valued by the central government and the province. Being sent to Nyangzhou district was for training purposes, and he would soon be promoted back to the province. Du Wei also mentioned that during his time in the photography class at Dongda, he had attended Vitsu District Chief Lang's lecture on Heidegger. "Back then, I didn't know Professor Lang. We only officially met after Professor Lang became the vice district chief of Niangzhou district. Du Wei rarely mentioned his connections to Wu Bozhong. This was the first time his relationship with Vitsu district chief Lang had been extraordinary. When Wu Bozhong saw Du Wei and Island Lord Ni Changhai accompanying a young man with an elegant temperament appearing at the venue, he couldn't help but be a little surprised. He didn't expect Vitsu district chief Lang to be so young. He looked several years younger than Du Wei, but his gestures seemed very easy and capable, and his eyebrows revealed an undeniable intelligence and wisdom. Vitsu district chief Lang shook hands and greeted Wu Bozhong, Old Huo, President Bao, and the Zong Tianyi couple, who were standing at the Wugong Shrine entrance with a kind and amiable attitude. Especially when he saw the old leader, Old Huo, he was solicitous and appeared very respectful to virtuous people. When he walked up to Wu Bozhong, Du Wei introduced, "This is my godfather." Vitsu district chief Lang raised his face and looked at him, saying respectfully, "Oh, master, I have heard of you for a long time." I'm ashamed. Wu Bozhong cupped his hands in a salute. "Thank you, district chief, for coming to the site to guide us." "Master is too polite. I can't talk about guidance. I'm here to learn." Vitsu district chief Lang also cupped his hands in return. Yuanji Great Law is a part of traditional culture, and its influence is growing. It has become a cultural brand for Phoenix Island and Niangzhou district. If I were to say thank you, I should say it. My father is also practicing the Yuanji Great Law, and his spirit is improving day by day. Wu Bozhong had heard Du Wei say that Vitsu district chief Lang's father was also a professor at Dongjiang University, so he said, "I have also heard of your father's great name for a long time." Vitsu district chief Lang said, "My father has always been interested in traditional culture, especially Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi. He must have a lot in common with the master." Wu Bozhong nodded in agreement. Yuanji culture and Taoist culture are in the same vein. Welcome your father to visit and guide us at the Wugong Shrine. The two exchanged a few pleasantries. Under the guidance of Du Wei and Nie Changhai, they participated in the opening ceremony with Old Huo. They cut the ribbon at the China Yuanji Culture Research Association unveiling ceremony. Afterwards, Wu Bozhong accompanied them to visit the Wugong Shrine. The first floor of the Wugong Shrine served as the practice hall, which could simultaneously accommodate up to 200 people practicing Yuanji Gong. The hall was floored with wood, and its 4 walls were fitted with mirrors, creating a vast rehearsal space. The second floor was a KTV room with 20 rooms, each equipped with audio-visual equipment. In addition to practicing Yuanji Gong, members could also enjoy a range of services, including catering, massage, bathing, and various forms of entertainment. Wu Bozhong lived, meditated on the 3rd floor, and received VIPs. It was divided into a meditation room, a reception room, and a dining room. Not bad, not bad. With such a place, the Yuanji Culture Research Association can be considered to have established itself on Phoenix Island. After visiting the Wugong Shrine, Vitsu District Chief Lang told Wu Bozhong, "We can't always talk about culture setting the stage and economy performing. Culture itself is also a productive force. Only through industrialization can culture achieve great development. In the future, our Niangzhou district will incorporate the Yuanji Culture Research Association into the overall development of Phoenix Island, planning as a whole and developing in a coordinated way." Vitsu District Chief Lang's words were very policy-oriented, meaning that the Yuanji Research Association had received official recognition. Vitsu District Chief Lang asked, as if remembering something, "Such a big building, it must take some effort to manage it. Are all the personnel in place?" "Oh, the recruitment advertisements have already been sent out," said Du Wei, who had been accompanying Vitsu District Chief Lang closely. "Those helping today are all temporary workers. Old Ni found on the island." Vitsu District Chief Lang said, "Oh," turned his face to Nie Changhai and said, "Old Ni, you have to support Master Wu more." "Definitely. Master Wu is now the cultural brand of our Phoenix Island," Nie Changhai quickly stated. Due, carrying a camera, suggested that Vitsu District Chief Lang and everyone take a group photo together. Vitsu District Chief Lang readily agreed. When taking the photo, he specially asked Old Huo and Wu Bozhong to stand in the middle. After taking the photo, Vitsu District Chief Lang said he had to rush back to the district government to attend an important meeting, so he left early with his entourage. Before leaving, he held Wu Bozhong's hand and said, "Master, if you have any difficulties in the future, tell me at any time, and I will do my best to solve them." Then he left. Wu Bozhong watched Vitsu District Chief Lang's hurrying departure and sighed. What a young, promising, and respectful leader. Chapter 2. 1. Female Assistant. It wasn't long after the completion ceremony of the Wugong Shrine that the recruited personnel began to arrive, one after another. The Tranquility Retreat Department, the VIP Department, the Security Department, the Catering Department, the Finance Department. So many departments. It was a far cry from the scale of his old clinic in Pai Town. Wu Bozhong worried that he wouldn't be able to handle it all. He wasn't getting any younger. Due reassured him, "Godfather, you just focus on refining pills and studying the divine power. Don't worry about the administrative stuff. I've already found you an assistant. You can relax." Assistant was an indispensable figure for many prominent business leaders and celebrities. Wu Bozhong repeated the fashionable word, muttering, "With such a large enterprise, I wouldn't trust any assistant unless it was you." "Me? Godfather, are you kidding? I'm already swamped with the magazine work. Where would I find the time to manage your whole operation?" Due pointed at his nose and chuckled. "Besides, this little ancestral hall business is nothing compared to the magazine. You don't expect me to drop a watermelon to pick up a sesame seed, do you?" Wu Bozhong knew that the magazine was Due's main affair, but who else could he trust? Due made a playful face at him, just as he had when he was a kid, and said, "Godfather, relax. The person I found for you, in terms of education and ability, is as good as me." Wu Bozhong noticed that Due was mysterious, didn't know what he was up to, and couldn't help feeling curious. However, remembering that Due often exaggerated, he didn't pay much attention to it. However, a few days later, Due really brought that assistant to Phoenix Island. That morning, he was meditating in the Tranquility Retreat on the 3rd floor when Hei-san, the head of security, quietly reported, "Master, General Manager Due is here." He had already instructed his subordinates that no one was to disturb him during meditation except for important guests or important matters. Due was his godson and had just visited the ancestral hall a few days ago, so he certainly didn't qualify as an important guest, nor would he have important matters. "Have him wait in the reception room with some tea. I'll go out when I've finished this session," he said, crossing his hands over his abdomen and closing his eyes. "But master..." Hei-san stood at attention, chest out and stomach in, maintaining a perfect military posture with no intention of leaving. This newly appointed head of security, Hei-san, was the island owner Nie Changhai's cousin. He was in his 30s, having served in the People's Armed Police, and had previously worked as a security guard for a state-owned enterprise in the provincial capital. He lost his job when the enterprise went bankrupt a few years ago. This time, when the Wugong Shrine was recruiting a head of security, Nie Changhai made the recommendation. Wu Bozhong had agreed to this appointment to give the island owner a face, but this Hei-san was big and burly, as strong as an ox, with a pockmarked face as dark as the bottom of a pot, making him look like a fierce demon. Hei-san had practiced Sanshou in the armed police and had demonstrated a set of Shaolin fists, his punches and kicks whistling through the air. He could easily take on 3 or 5 people unarmed, so he wasn't a bad choice for the job. Since taking office, Hei-san had spent his days training the newly hired security guards and was responsible for Wu Bozhong's security. Wu Bozhong gave him an important task. Whenever he left the Wugong Shrine to go to the island or the county town, Hei-san would follow closely behind. Usually, Hei-san wore black clothing and tied leggings, walked with the wind at his heels, spoke and acted decisively and loyally, and became his bodyguard. At this moment, Wu Bozhong opened his eyes slightly, glanced at He-san, and frowned when he saw him hesitating. But what? General Manager Du said that he brought your assistant with him. As soon as Wu Bozhong heard the word assistant, he softly, "Oh, Ed," thinking, "My son really is the president of a provincial magazine. He's efficient." He slowly exhaled the air from deep within his dantian into his chest, removed his hands from his abdomen, stood up, and followed He-san out of the Tranquility Retreat. The reception room was just a few steps away from the Tranquility Retreat. As soon as Wu Bozhong entered, he saw Du Wei and a young woman sitting on the sofa, whispering. The woman's face was like solidified fat. Her eyebrows were like willow leaves, and her figure was tall yet full. She wore a silver-gray business suit and turned politely when she saw Wu Bozhong enter. "Godfather, this is the assistant I hired for you," Du Wei said, sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, drinking tea. "Her name is Shu Ku. She's a graduate of the Chinese department at Dongjiang University." "Master, nice to meet you," Shu Ku said, standing up. Her beautiful phoenix eyes were cold and as clear as water, evoking the phrase, "cold as ice." "Shu Ku used to work for the Chuyun Group. I poached her." The Chuyun Group was a large company in the provincial capital. Du Wei's words sounded like he was showing off. Wu Bozhong followed his lead, saying, "Oh, good, good. I'm just afraid that this is a small pond that will cramp Miss Shu's style." "Godfather, Shu Ku and I knew each other at Dongda. She helped me a lot," Du Wei said. "At Chuyun Group, she dealt with big bosses and can bring in a lot of KTV members." KTV members was an idea Du Wei had suggested to Wu Bozhong. It was explicitly targeted at wealthy individuals with an annual fee of 30,000 to 50,000 yuan. Currently, very few had joined. If Du Wei's statement were true, it would be a welcome outcome. Moreover, the woman before him was so beautiful that she reminded him of the femme fatale he had met in his youth. From the wife of a Kuomintang division commander to the daughter of a communist army commander, they were all such beauties. He had met many of them in his life, and each time they made his heart flutter, leading him to make mistakes that almost cost him his life. Yet even though he nearly died 1,000,000 times, he never regretted them. Even now, at his age, if he encountered such a femme fatale, he couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't make mistakes again, just like when he saw his eldest disciple Zhong Tianyi's wife, Meng Fei. This Shu Ku, judging from Du Wei's tone, there seems to be something between them. Wu Bozhong reined in his wild thoughts. "Good, Miss Shu. I'm relieved to have you assisting me. From now on, I'll leave the Wugong Shrine affairs and the Yuanji Research Association to you. That way, I can free up my energy to cultivate and teach the Great Way." Wu Bozhong grasped Shu Ku's outstretched hand and gently stroked it. Her hands were so white and soft, like a little snake slithering into his heart, tickling him. Who could resist such tickling? "As for the salary," he began to say, but Shu Ku interrupted him. "Master, I didn't come to the Wugong Shrine for the salary." She smiled gently. "What I value is the environment of Phoenix Island. I once dreamed of finding a place like Shangri-La where I could be concerned with grain and vegetables, as Heisey said, and have a house facing the sea where spring warms the flowers. Although Phoenix Island doesn't face the sea, it's good enough with the lake surrounding it." "Heisey, who is that?" Wu Bozhong asked Du Wei. "A poet who committed suicide by jumping in front of a train a few years ago." Oh, a poet. I used to know one or two. No knew of them were any good," he muttered with disdain. "No death is true because every death opens a new door. It is a beginning." This sentence also came from one of Osho's books. He suddenly felt that the distance between him and this new assistant had shortened somewhat. "Let me take you around the island," Du Wei suggested. Seeing Shu Ku hesitate, he told Wu Bozhong, "Godfather, I'll take Shu Ku to familiarize her with the island so she can get to work as soon as possible." Oh, good, go ahead," Wu Bozhong said. He watched Du Wei and the female assistant leave the reception room together, stunned momentarily. Shu Ku. He repeatedly savored the female assistant's name, seeming to experience for the first time what youth and beauty meant to an old man, even if he was a master, even if it was with his son Du Wei, unable to suppress the jealousy deep in his heart. 2. Shuku. As the reader may have guessed, the female assistant, Shuku, whom Du Wei hired for Wu Bozhong, was none other than Li Hong, the former president of the Langtaosha Club at Dongjiang University. Since graduating from the Dongjiang University photography class, Du Wei had not seen Li Hong again. However, he had heard many rumors about this beautiful, talented woman from the Chinese department. First, he heard that Li Hong's father had been sentenced for corruption and soon committed suicide in prison. Her mother was also placed under investigation. Li Hong's romantic relationship with Professor Lang Tao fell apart, and her job assignment was also affected. No formal employer was willing to accept her. Ultimately, she had to go to the Dongjiang Economic Management College, a private college without formal accreditation, to work as an announcer for the broadcasting station. Later, he heard from Zhong Tianyi that a handsome man named Ba Dong, who was studying at the Dongjiang Economic Management College, had fallen in love with Li Hong, but the relationship didn't last long. The two broke up soon after. It was said that Li Hong dumped Ba Dong and got together with the son of a provincial leader. In a fit of pique, Ba Dong left the provincial capital after graduation and went to Beijing. From then on, Du Wei had never heard any news about Li Hong until 2 years ago, when the Chuyun Group agreed to sponsor the magazine. The Chuyun Group was a large company primarily engaged in the entertainment industry, controlling over 60% of the dance halls and bathhouses in the provincial capital. The boss was Zhang Xiaobo, whom Du Wei knew through Old Man Song Qiangkun. Zhang Xiaobo's father used to be Song Qiangkun's subordinate. Clearly, it was to give Old Man Song a face that he sponsored the magazine for 100,000 yuan. It was the largest sponsorship amount that Popular Art magazine had received since Du Wei took office as president. Not only that, but when Du Wei went to the Chuyun Group to pick up the check, Zhang Xiaobo also treated him to a meal. The people who came to Chuyun Entertainment City to spend money were either rich or powerful. Men in Dajiang City with money and status would be embarrassed to say they had not been there a few times. The ladies in the bathhouse were all female college students and actors from art troupes selected from various universities in the provincial capital. Du Wei had taken clients to Chuyun Entertainment City twice, and each lady had been beautiful, charming, and unforgettable. Additionally, Heidi Lao, located on the first floor, was considered the best seafood restaurant in the provincial capital. The ingredients were all flown in by special planes from Hong Kong and Hainan. Although the meal was supposed to be a simple meal, it was already extravagant in Du Wei's eyes. Zhang Xiaobo not only ordered a table full of seafood, but also had the group's vice president, chief financial officer, and several department managers accompany them. This was clearly for Old Man Song's sake. In the business and entertainment circles of the provincial capital, Zhang Xiaobo's reputation was terrifying. It was not easy for the average person to meet him, let alone get him to sponsor them. Zhang Xiaobo was a few years younger than Du Wei, standing at less than 1.6 meters tall with a bald head, short legs, and a small mustache. His wrists and neck were covered in gold and silver jewelry. He waddled like a penguin, his beer belly swaying as he walked. At first glance, he looked like a mob boss in a movie. That day, as soon as they were seated in the private room, Zhang Xiaobo, sitting in the main seat, took out his mobile phone and made a call, saying nonsensically, "You come over and keep our guests company too," and hung up. Sitting to Zhang Xiaobo's left, the chief financial officer clearly knew whom he was calling and silently relinquished his seat, taking a seat in another location instead. Seeing this, Du Wei knew the person coming had an extraordinary relationship with Zhang Xiaobo. About 5 minutes later, the private room door opened and a beautiful woman walked in. Although she wore a black business skirt, her tall, graceful figure amazed everyone present. Du Wei was facing the side of the private room door, so he did not see her face clearly. After she had walked straight to the empty seat and sat down, Zhang Xiaobo introduced her. "This is Shu Ku, the entertainment director of our group. This is Du, the president of Popular Art magazine." Before he could finish the introduction, the beautiful woman turned her face, and Du Wei could not help being startled. He never expected it would be Li Hong. "How is it you, Shuku?" Fatsing, the former president of the Dongjiang University Literary Club and editor-in-chief of Langtaosha, Du Wei was at a loss for words. However, Shuku did not seem to be surprised at all by this dramatic encounter. She just smiled faintly. "Surprised, President Du?" Du Wei detected a hint of sarcasm in the 3 words, President Du. He remembered the rumors he had heard about Li Hong, and for a moment, he did not know what to say. Zhang Xiaobo asked suspiciously, "How is it? Do you two know each other?" "Oh, we are alumni," Du Wei stuttered. "When I was in the photography class at Dongda, Shuku helped me publish a special edition in Langtaosha magazine." "Ha ha! I forgot that you are a photographer." Zhang Xiaobo patted his bald head. When they first met, Du Wei had given him a copy of his newly published collection of photographs. That day, Du Wei drank a lot of wine. He and Zhang Xiaobo finished 2 bottles of Wuliangyi liquor. Later, he got a little drunk. When he raised his glass to toast Shuku, she refused. During the meal, Shuku hardly touched a drop of alcohol. She just kept putting food into Zhang Xiaobo's bowl, and when Zhang Xiaobo's cell phone rang, she took the call for him, which showed the extraordinary relationship between the two. When the meal was over, Du Wei was too drunk to walk. Zhang Xiaobo was also intoxicated. Shuku helped him out of the private room. Zhang Xiaobo told Du Wei, his breath reeking of alcohol, "Old Du, if you come to the entertainment city in the future, go straight to Shuku and have her give you a 50% discount." He also instructed Shuku, "Old Du is Old Song's man. Do you know Old Song? My dad's old superior. You can't treat him like an outsider, you hear me?" But Shuku did not even say goodbye to Du Wei when they parted. She was cold and aloof, as if they had never met before, and her current name, Shuku, was a completely different person from Li Hong of Dongjiang University. After returning from Chuyun Entertainment City, Du Wei's mind was full of Shuku's image. He remembered how beautiful, generous, and radiant Li Hong had been in those days. In addition, she possessed outstanding talent and came from a distinguished family background. Du Wei dared not have any presumptuous thoughts except those that were flattering to her. Li Hong published his collection of photographs in Langtaosha. He had asked Song Xiaofan, who was in the Dongjiang University writers' class at the time, to recommend him. He had taken artistic portraits of Song Xiaofan, and one of them was selected by Li Hong as the cover photo of Langtaosha. Later, Song Xiaofan asked Du Wei to repair old photos for her father, which allowed him to meet the most critical benefactor in his life, Song Qiangkun. All of this seemed to flash with the image of Li Hong. Who would have thought that her destiny would undergo such a series of reversals later? Du Wei was filled with emotion. Perhaps it was related to the photography profession he had once engaged in. Du Wei felt as if he possessed the beautiful woman who had appeared before his lens, and he had a special feeling. As a photographer, he seemed to have a unique ability. His eyes were like X-rays, stripping the clothes off the women and showing them as beautiful women's naked bodies in his camera lens. Du Wei had taken photos of Li Hong, so it was as if he had seen her naked body. In his subconscious, he also regarded Li Hong as a woman he had possessed. Of course, this was an illusion, an occupational hazard. Du Wei had been troubled by this illusion for a long time and was unable to extricate himself. He had a collection of countless portraits of women, and he often masturbated to these photos. At that time, Du Wei and Jiang Lili were briefly married. One day, Jiang Lili discovered Du Wei's collection of women's photos. Jiang Lili scolded him and burned all the pictures to ashes, including photos of Li Hong and Gu Zheng. Later, Du Wei went to the Chuyun Entertainment City's nightclub twice. Both times, he did not look for a prostitute. After leaving the sauna, he drank tea in the VIP private room for half a day. The foreman asked him if he wanted to call a prostitute, a recent art school graduate of 17 years old. The foreman's tone was ambiguous, and Du Wei understood what she meant. The last time he came to the entertainment city, Du Wei had called 2 prostitutes, also 17 years old, and the guest he had invited was already over 50. But this time he did not want to call a lady. His purpose was to see Li Hong. "Can you call Shu Ku over?" he said. "Shu K?" The foreman was stunned. "You want Director Shu to accompany you? Are you sick?" The foreman glared at him and walked away angrily. The second time, he changed a foreman. Du Wei made the same request. This time he said, "Director Shu and I are friends. Can you call her over?" The foreman hesitated and agreed. After a while, Shu Ku came. As she had last time, she wore a black business skirt and maintained a cold expression and an aloof demeanor. "President Du, is there anything you'd like to discuss?" "Nothing much. I just wanted to chat with you, Li Hong," Du Wei said. "Don't forget, I'm also a member of the Langtaosha Club." "I'm sorry. There is no Li Hong here. My name is Shu Ku." She interrupted Du Wei and said coldly, "If you want to catch up, you've probably mistaken someone." With that, she turned to leave. "I heard that Ba Dong has gone to Beijing. Don't you want to know his news?" Du Wei said tentatively to her back. "And Gu Zheng, let me tell you, I used to like her." Shu Ku stopped as if shot by an arrow. After a while, she turned around and said expressionlessly, "I don't want to know anyone's news." Shu Ku displayed the arrogant expression he was accustomed to, and Du Wei was speechless for a moment. "Thank you for taking care of the entertainment city's business and welcome you to come again," Shu Ku said in standard Mandarin, like a former announcer. "If it's a business matter, you can also find me or Director Zhang. If it's unrelated to business, I'm sorry I can't keep you company." After saying that, she took out a business card from her suit pocket, put it on the coffee table in front of Du Wei, turned around, and walked out of the private room. From then on, Du Wei never went to Chuyun Entertainment City again. The 2 cooperation projects between the magazine and the Niangzhou district government on Phoenix Island had already been launched during that time. Wugong Shrine, which his godfather had just completed, also required him to worry about it. He ran to Phoenix Island almost every other day and put Shu Ku aside. About half a year later, Du Wei suddenly saw a message in the newspaper. Chuyun Group has been sealed off and the person in charge, Zhang, has been detained by the police. He could not help being greatly shocked. The message was brief, stating only that the enterprise was suspected of violating the law, without specifying the reason. With the background of Chuyun Group and Zhang Xiaobo, such a sudden change must have hidden some unknown secrets behind it. Since the Chuyun Group had sponsored the popular art magazine for 100,000 yuan, Du Wei was worried about being implicated and felt a little uneasy. After a while, seeing that no one came to find him, he felt relieved. One day, while tidying up his desk, Du Wei pulled out a business card from the drawer and was stunned when he saw the 2 words Shu Ku on it. Chuyun Entertainment City was sealed up. Shu Ku, the entertainment director, could probably not escape responsibility. How was she? In any case, she had helped me before, and like Gu Zheng, she was once his dream lover. A feeling of pity for a beautiful woman drove Du Wei to dial the phone number on the business card. The phone rang for a long time without anyone answering. The second time was also the same. He did not give up and dialed for the third time. This time, someone finally answered the phone. It was the voice of Shu Ku, which he was familiar with, cold, arrogant, and with a kind of vigilance and guardedness. "Is it Li Hong?" The other party hung up the phone as soon as Du Wei said this. He remembered Shu Ku's warning from the last time and smiled bitterly. He redialed the phone. "Is it Shu Ku?" The other party was silent, without answering. Thank goodness she didn't hang up the phone. "I am Du Wei." He knew Shu Ku had already heard his voice, but he still announced his name. "What do you want?" Shu Ku was still so cold. "Nothing, I'm just worried about you," he said hesitantly. "Worried that I didn't go to jail like Zhang Xiaobo, right?" Hearing this sarcastic tone, Du Wei was unsure how to respond. He even felt that there was a hint of schadenfreude in Shu Ku's words. Obviously, Shu Ku was not implicated, and Du Wei was somewhat relieved. But in any case, the company was sealed up, and the boss was detained. Shuku's current situation would not be too good as an employee, at least temporarily losing her job. Due felt that he should do something. "Where are you now?" he asked. "What do you want to do?" Shuku was still in that guarded tone. "No, I don't want to do anything. I just want to see you," Due said. Shuku fell silent again. At that moment, Due was afraid that she would hang up the phone. Fortunately, after a while, Shuku spoke. "Okay," and she gave him an address. On the way to see Shuku, Due suddenly had an idea. Why not introduce Shuku to his godfather, Wugong? Recently, he had been worried about finding a suitable assistant for his godfather. And now, he felt that there was no one more suitable than Shuku. This would help Shuku and his godfather, and it would be a win-win situation, so why not do it? A feeling of almost sublime emotion rose in Due's heart. He was nearly moved by himself. At that time, he had no other ideas about Shuku. 3. At the pier. One day, Due suddenly received a call from his godfather, Wugong. "Since coming to Phoenix Island, I haven't seen your mother. I dreamed about her yesterday. She was much older than before. I want to bring her over to stay for a few days." Due's heart sank. He felt that his godfather's voice was a bit hoarse. Previously, he had never thought his godfather sounded old. Due hadn't seen his mother for a long time either. Since being transferred back to the provincial capital, he had rarely returned to Chuzhou to see his mother, as he was busy with work. His wife, Jiang Lili, had a volatile temper, and the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was strained. Usually, Jiang Lili and her children lived in a housing unit distributed in the Worker Cultural Palace. His mother still lived in the old house on Wenjing Street in the city's south. It was quiet to be alone, but Due was a little worried because she was old. Hearing his godfather say that he wanted to bring his mother over to stay for a while, he thought it was a good idea. Due returned to Chuzhou to pick up his mother a few days later. Wugong got up early on the day Due and his mother went to the island. He meditated in the tranquility retreat for half an hour as usual, ate the breakfast sent by the kitchen, a bowl of millet porridge, a glass of milk, a fried breadstick, 2 pieces of fermented bean curd, and half a clove of garlic and sugar and vinegar, and then changed into the dark blue silk and cotton tang suit that he usually wore to teach and preach to the students or receive important guests. He also trimmed his messy beard with scissors. Since coming to Phoenix Island, Wugong had grown his hair and beard. His white hair and the long, snow-white beard that hung to his chest, combined with the silk and cotton tang suit, made him look energetic and somewhat immortal. When he went downstairs, he ran into Shuku, who had just started working. The newly appointed assistant was very dedicated. Not only did she come to work on time every day, but the first thing she did after arriving was to greet him and report on the day's work plan. It was said that this was a habit she had developed in a large company in the provincial capital. At this moment, Shuku noticed he was about to go downstairs and was somewhat surprised, asking if he needed her company. Whenever he went out, even just for a stroll around the island, someone would always accompany or escort him. This was a rule Shuku had established after taking office. The master's safety, what could be more important than that? Shuku repeatedly emphasized at the Wugong Shrine staff meeting and requested that Hei-san assign him 2 full-time bodyguards. Round-the-clock protection, we can't leave any security risks. But he had refused, saying, "We're short-staffed. Let's forget about dedicated bodyguards. Having Hei-san follow me is enough." Nevertheless, he was still satisfied with Shuku's attentiveness. This assistant not only possessed good looks and high academic qualifications, but also demonstrated strong work capabilities and was extremely dedicated. Shortly after taking office, the Wugong Shrine was managed with perfect order, and the number of people practicing Yuanji Kung Fu had also increased considerably. It seemed Due had a good eye for talent. At this moment, Wugong lifted his eyelids to look at Shuku. Like all the female employees, Shuku wore a batik cotton skirt suit with a red base and a blue flower pattern. With her tall and plump figure, she looked very enchanting. Wugong's eyelids twitched, and he looked away. What would Miss think of having an immense beauty by his side? He shook his head. I'm going to the dock to pick up a guest. You can do your work for a while. He-san will follow me. Wu Bozhong came downstairs, and He-san was already waiting for him with the electric car. This electric car had only been purchased recently and was usually used to pick up and drop off students. Increasingly, people from outside the island came to Wugong Shrine to practice the Yuanji Great Way, and one electric car was no longer sufficient, so they had recently ordered another one. At this moment, the new electric car parked downstairs was shiny, spotless, and adorned with beaded curtains and a string of small red lanterns on the car canopy, filled with festive colors. The cement road from the top of Phoenix Island to the dock on the lake had just been completed not long ago, and this was a direct result of Vitsu District Mayor Lang's visit to attend the completion ceremony of Wugong Shrine last time. Of course, island owner Nie Changhai also made a significant contribution. Without him mobilizing the villagers on the island to participate in the construction, this road would not have been completed so quickly. Wu Bozhong suddenly thought he should organize the employees to hold a welcoming ceremony for Miss as he drove the electric car down Xiaolong Mountain. So, he took out his mobile phone and called his female assistant, Shuku. After arranging this matter, he was occupied by a special feeling, as if he would not meet an old lover from decades ago, but welcome a new bride like a groom. It was late May, and the weather was beginning to warm up. Following the Phoenix Island Resort, 2 more tourism projects had recently broken ground. The island's most luxuriant tune trees and crops fell and disappeared piece by piece, gradually turning into construction sites. The roar of excavators and pile drivers rang from morning to night, and it only stopped in the middle of the night. The fishy smell of the latex flowing out after the tune trees were cut down permeated the air, spreading from the construction site all the way to the lake, and then gradually dissipated. A ferry boat docked at the dock on the lake every half an hour, and the passengers getting on and off the ship were endless and continuous. Wu Bozhong asked He-san to drive the electric car to the parking lot near the dock. He got out of the car first, stood by the lake, and looked expectantly at the lake. The lake of Niangzhu Lake was vast, and the outline of the county town on the opposite side was faintly visible. The lake was empty, and there was still some time before the next ferry boat. The morning sun was dazzling and scorching to people. He-san parked the electric car and came back, carrying a folding chair in his hand. He opened it in front of Wu Bozhong and asked him to sit down. He-san always carried a folding chair with him whenever he accompanied him on his travels, along with a parasol. As soon as he sat down in the folding chair, He-san supported the large parasol with a bang. The white sun was blocked outside, and the whole person suddenly felt cool. Several people who were waiting for the ferry boat at the dock saw Wu Bozhong sitting under the parasol from a distance. They walked over slowly and bowed respectfully to him from afar. Wu Bozhong recognized that they were villagers on the island who were also practicing the Yuanji Gong. He leaned back and arched his hands to show his return. "Master, are you going to the county town?" asked one of the older villagers. "No, I'm waiting for a guest." He replied briefly while casting his eyes on the lake. Faintly, the shadow of a motorized boat appeared on the lake. He-san looked at it with his hand over his head and muttered, "The ferry boat is coming." When the boat approached, it was not a ferry boat, but a barge full of cement and steel bars. In the past 2 years, with the start of the resort, the number of barges traveling from the county town to Phoenix Island has increased, and they are all transporting building materials to the island. These barges also transported the bricks, tiles, and cement used to build Wugong Shrine. The cargo dock where the barges docked was next to the passenger dock. Passengers and goods were mixed, and the dock was a chaotic mess, almost resembling a farmer's market. It was reported that a ferry would soon be operational, allowing vehicles from the county town and the provincial capital to travel directly to Phoenix Island. After about half an hour, the ferry finally landed. When Wu Bozhong saw Du Wei supporting an elderly woman through the crowded crowd and walking towards the dock, he involuntarily stood up from the folding chair. The woman wore a white silk trousers suit with her head of black hair combed neatly and tied into a beautiful bun at the back of her head. She was slightly plump, but her waist was straight, which made people imagine her graceful figure when she was young. Her face was round and fair like a full moon. She couldn't see many signs of aging. Although there were fine wrinkles around her eyes were charming like a girl's when she looked around. In an instant, Wu Bozhong seemed to have returned to Chuzhou City many years ago, to the quiet courtyard and the scene where he first saw Miss Jan. He couldn't help but shout out, "Miss!" The voice was loud. Du Wei and his mother, who were walking close by, heard it. Both mother and son looked at Wu Bozhong in surprise, as if the other party had recognized the wrong person or called the wrong person. Especially the mother, who was supported by her son, a hint of red flashed across her dignified face, making her seem a little shy. And she murmured, "Old Wu." Du Wei saw his godfather, Wu Bozhong, walking toward his mother, so he released his mother's hand. Instantly, he also became the orphaned teenager on Wenjing Street in Chuzhou City. The sun was so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. People were coming and going at the dock, and no one but Du Wei and Hei San, who was holding a parasol next to him, noticed this scene. 4. Reunion. The family is finally reunited. Hearing this sentence, Wu Bozhong's heart couldn't help but tremble. "Miss, you finally admit that we are a family," he murmured. "I have been waiting for this sentence almost my whole life." Miss, however, did not pick up the conversation, glanced at him reproachfully, and complained, "Old Wu, I am an old lady in her 70s. Don't call me Miss in front of children and outsiders." "70s," he said, pretending to be surprised. "In my eyes, you are still as charming as when I first saw you." "You haven't changed. You are an old scoundrel." She cursed softly, but a shallow smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. "Yes, you are younger than me anyway." "You are 3 years older than me, miss." He chuckled twice. As the saying goes, a woman who is 3 years older than a man is as good as a gold brick. Du Wei is our gold brick. It's a pity that his surname is Du, not Wu. "Don't be ignorant, and be careful that Du Fu climbs out of the water to demand your life." Old Du can't blame me. He can't do it himself. If it weren't for my help, their Du family would have been cut off. "Humph, who knows how many good women you have helped." She rolled her eyes at him. "The pills you refine are actually just for fooling people. Women feel hot all over after eating them and can't sleep. Old Wu, honestly confess, how many women have you slept with over the years?" Although her tone was half joking, her still charming eyes were a little aggressive. "Miss," he stuttered slyly. Miss had asked this kind of question more than once before, and he never answered directly. He also knew that she didn't expect him to answer. The reason why she asked this question tirelessly was not so much out of suspicion as out of curiosity and amazement. After climbing into Miss Ken's bed for the first time and sweating profusely, he remembered the sentence she said. "I have been with Du Fu for so many years, but it's not as good as spending one night with you." She buried her face in his arms and cried as she said that. She held his cock, which was much thicker than the average man, in her hand and kissed it over and over again, exclaiming, "God, it's much bigger than old Du's, like Sun Wukong's golden cudgel." Among the women he had slept with in his travels, very few did not marvel at his extraordinary golden cudgel. There was even a jingle circulated among them, "Old Wu's dick, Shanyu's pussy," in the countryside. Shanyu means a cow, which meant that his dick was big enough to mate with a cow. In the past, he had been proud of owning ancestral medical skills, but after that, he felt that owning a cock that made women ecstatic was also something to be proud of. Looking at Miss Iti's face, which was as beautiful as a pear blossom after the rain, he experienced the pleasure of conquering a woman for the first time. This feeling had only arisen before when he was with the wives and daughters of 2 of his superiors. For him, those were 2 unforgettable experiences that also reversed his fate. The first almost led to him being shot by a Kuomintang division commander, and the second resulted in his expulsion from the People's Liberation Army, turning him from a proud captain-level military doctor into a quack doctor making a living by specializing in infertility treatments. He knew that he was indeed in love with Miss, whereas before, even though he had slept with countless women under the pretense of treating infertility, he had never felt this way. From then on, whenever he wandered outside for a while and returned to that courtyard house on Wenjing Street, the south gate of Chuzhou City, he felt a sense of coming home. He really couldn't live without Miss, and of course, Miss couldn't live without him either. Every time he was away for too long, she would look forward to his return like waiting for the stars and the moon. Once, after a passionate encounter in bed, she said, as if she had discovered a secret, "I finally know why you like to eat turtles, because they are an aphrodisiac, right?" He rolled his eyes and retorted, "I let old Do eat them too. Why doesn't he work?" Miss was stumped by the question. Her face turned red, making her look charming, shy, and even more enchanting. He thought, "What virtue or ability do I, old Wu, possess that I met such a rare beauty in the world? This is probably the legendary happiness, and a woman who brings happiness is worth cherishing, even respecting." What's more, Miss had given him a son. Although he didn't have the surname Wu, he was still his own flesh and blood. Thinking about it carefully, those children fathered by the women he had slept with were also his flesh and blood, but he had never truly felt like a father until after Du Wei was born. After all, those women were just treatment subjects or breeding tools to him, while Miss was a woman he loved. In the communist ranks, marrying a woman you loved was called having a beloved. Although he and Miss were not officially married, deep down he had long regarded her as his beloved and treated Du Wei as his own flesh and blood. Actually, Wu Bozhong himself couldn't say how many women he had slept with in his life. She's an old lady now, still asking about this. Hey, Miss is jealous, which means she has me in her heart. He thought, it doesn't matter how many women I sleep with. What matters is that Miss is the only one in my heart. We are family. Adjacent to Wu Bozhong's palace, the meditation room was a guest room designed according to the standards of a five-star hotel's presidential suite. The decoration was extremely luxurious, and everything from the lamps to the bathroom fixtures was imported. He arranged for Miss to stay in the guest room, and Shu Ku also selected a female server named Yaya to serve as Mrs. Maid and take care of her daily life. Yaya was pretty and clever. She was from a local family and was only 16 years old. Of course, his assistant also arranged this. When Shu Ku brought Yaya to Miss's room, she kept shaking her head. "A maid? Do you really think of me as a miss?" Wu Bozhong said, "But you were born to be Miss." But she still shook her head like a little girl. "I'm old, but I haven't reached the point where I can't move and need someone to serve me. No. She insisted on returning the service. "Girl, go back to what you were doing before." Seeing that she was really acting like a spoiled miss, Wu Bozhong had to compromise. "All right, forget about taking care of your daily life. But when you go out for trips, Yaya must follow you closely. This island is not like the city. What if something unexpected happens? How can I explain it to Du Wei?" Shu Ku also chimed in, "Yes, madam. Please accept Master's good intentions." Perhaps the fresh title of Madam caught her attention. Miss turned her gaze to Shu Ku, sized her up from head to toe, and said, "Oh, so you're the assistant? Du Wei said you manage everything inside and outside the Wugong Shrine. You're competent." Shu Ku lowered her eyes and said, "Madam, you flatter me." After Shu Ku led Yaya away, "Miss," said with a smile that was not quite a smile, "this assistant of yours is very eloquent, and she's pretty." Wu Bozhong felt something behind her words, so he laughed it off. Yes, Du Wei recommended her, so there can't be any mistakes, right?" Miss spent a few days in the Wugong Shrine, where she did not need to lift a finger to do anything. The days were getting a bit too boring, and she wanted to take a walk on the island. This was also an itinerary that Wu Bozhong had arranged long ago. Not only did he accompany her personally, but he also had his assistants Shuku and Yaya accompany them. Hei-san drove the electric car and took them around the island. Phoenix Island was just a tiny place. In 2 days, they had visited every nook and cranny. Wherever they went, Yaya and Shuku held parasols for Miss, one on the left and one on the right, following her closely. This is truly a paradise on earth. The air is good and nourishing. Miss praised all the way. Then stay here longer, Wubojong said, following her words. Don't think that most of the people on the island are very poor. There are many long-lived people here. There are several centenarians. She hummed vaguely, frowning those still beautiful eyebrows. It's just a little noisy. Listen, dong, 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 what is that sound? Wubojong listened for a moment. Oh, that's the pile driver at the resort construction site. Phoenix Island is going to build a tourist island. In addition to the resort, the sightseeing agricultural park will also start construction soon. It will be quiet when the construction peak has passed in a few years. She frowned and muttered, why build a tourist island on such a good island? Wubojong originally intended to say that the resort was a project introduced by their son, Du Wei, but after looking at Shuku beside him, he ultimately did not say it. On the 3rd day, island owner Ni Changhai held a banquet at his home to welcome Miss. The island owner's wife, Xiao Man, was famous for her cooking skills. Most of the leaders and guests from the provincial capital and county town had tasted the island owner's wife's cooking. That day, the island owner's 2-story building was lively and full of guests. The guests crowded the living room on the 1st floor, filling a large round table with fragrant dishes. According to the island's customs, Nie Changhai asked Wubojong and Miss to sit at the head of the table. During the banquet, he requested Wubojong to perform grabbing a snake from afar. Master, this table is missing a dragon and phoenix presenting auspiciousness. After the Wugong Shrine was built and opened, the island owner's wife, Xiao Man, was hired as head chef. The so-called dragon and phoenix presenting auspiciousness is, as the saying goes, steamed snake meat, which is the island owner's wife's best dish. On Phoenix Island, snakes are referred to as little dragons. Since the master's reputation spread far and wide both on and off the island, Wubojong rarely performed grabbing a snake from afar again, not to mention that Miss was present today. He repeatedly declined, and later, Miss helped him out with a single sentence. Stop it. I'm afraid of snakes when I see them. During the banquet, a 2- or 3-year-old boy suddenly ran out of the kitchen, calling Dad and rushing into island owner Nie Changhai's arms. Nie Changhai quickly put down his chopsticks, picked up the child, and said to Wubojong, who was sitting at the head of the table, Child, please call Grandpa Wu. If it weren't for Grandpa, you might not have been able to come to this world. The child raised his head, stared at Wubojong with wide, dark eyes, and did not say a word. That night, after returning to the Wugong Shrine from the island owner's family banquet, Wubojong tossed and turned in his palace and couldn't sleep. In the middle of the night, he couldn't help but get out of bed. Without even turning on the light, he groped his way to the guest room next door. After knocking twice, the guest's room door opened. Miss was wearing a loose scarlet silk nightgown standing at the door. Why haven't you slept yet at this late hour? He walked into the room through the half-open door, muttering, You drank too much alcohol. Aren't you asleep either? Miss hesitated for a moment, then followed him to the bedside. He grabbed her hand just as she was about to turn on the light. Don't turn on the light. Just like this, he said breathlessly, putting strength in his hands, and Miss leaned softly toward him like a bag. When their bodies were close together, he felt that Miss's skin was as smooth as silk. He couldn't help but shiver. That cock that had once made countless women's hearts flutter stood up like a spring and suddenly became as powerful as when he was young. Without a word, he pressed Miss down on the 1.8-meter wide bed. Old Wu, I'm already over 70 years old. Are you crazy? Miss cried out in alarm, but her hands grabbed his neck tightly like iron claws, choking him and making it hard for him to breathe. Later, they finally calmed down from a gentle rain. After all, they were old and could not have experienced a storm like they did when they were young. "You don't look like you're over 70 at all," he muttered, stroking her breasts, which were a bit sagging but still very full. "You are still as strong as you were back then. It seems you haven't taken fewer of those pills," Miss said. "In recent years, I don't know how many women you've harmed." He said seriously, "I'm not harming them. I'm saving them. If I don't help, they will be divorced by their husbands." "Miss," spat at him. "Old Wu, you're really thick-skinned. When I was eating at the island owner's house today, I noticed that the child bore a strong resemblance to you, and like Du Wei, he also had a pair of piercing eyes. Is he your seed?" He did not answer. Miss said again, "And that Shu Ku, she's not only pretty but also very scheming. You have to be careful." He didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, "What are you thinking?" Du Wei introduced Shu Ku. Mentioning Du Wei, Miss really didn't say anything. After a while, she sighed softly. "The thing I'm most worried about now is my son." He interrupted. "With me around, what's there to worry about?" Miss said, "I'm worried that you will corrupt Du Wei. Recently, I often dream about my father, as well as Guo Da and Du Fu. Back then, my father arranged for me to marry Brigade Commander Guo, but I fell in love with Du Fu before we were officially married. Later, Du Fu and I broke through my father's obstruction and finally came together, and had more than 10 years of loving days. But then I met you, a quack, and secretly got together with you and gave birth to Du Wei, which made Du Fu so angry that he threw himself into the moat. My father was also angered to death by me. In this life, I am sorry for them. I am an unfaithful woman. If it weren't for Du Wei, I wouldn't have the face to live." Speaking of this, Miss suddenly began to sob, and the sobs sounded a little desolate. Only at this time did Wu Bozhong feel that Miss was an old woman over 70 years old. He was speechless for a moment, unsure of what to say. After a while, Miss stopped sobbing and sighed. "Now when I look at Du Wei, although he's not Du Fu's flesh and blood, that ruthlessness of his that makes him bite onto a goal and not let go is really like Du Fu. Du Wei is more promising than Du Fu. He has not only become a photographer, but also the president of a magazine. It hasn't been easy for Du Wei to get to this point. I heard that there is a big figure in the province who has been helping him. This point is also similar to Du Fu's. First, he met my father, and later he met the banner owner and German photographer Li Hans at Lishan Photo Studio. He has had benefactors to help him every step of the way, but Du Wei never told me who that big figure was. Do you know?" He shook his head. "I don't know. Du Wei rarely talks to me about his career." "Miss Oed, that's not good. After all, he's your son." He smiled wryly and said, "Du Wei doesn't know. He only knows that I'm his godfather." Miss realized that she had said the wrong thing. "All right, even if he doesn't know, you have to keep it in mind and don't be confused. Don't lead your own son down the wrong path." Hearing Miss say this, he almost jumped out of bed. "You can't say that. I've taught Du Wei a great deal since he was a child." "Taught him how to play with women?" This sentence choked him, but he immediately retorted, "How can a man conquer the world if he can't even conquer a woman? That's your philosophy, but you yourself stumbled on women back then." Like being hit on an acupuncture point, he was choked again. Miss is worthy of being a lady from a big family. She remains as domineering as she was before. You've seen it these days. From the villagers to the island owner on Phoenix Island, they all treat me like a master," he said in a half-defensive and half-boastful tone. Du Wei also led the several projects on the island. "Let me tell you this. Our father and son can spit and make several pits on Phoenix Island. What are you worried about?" Miss probably felt that her words were too heavy, so she changed her tone. "You, at such a young age, are still as competitive as young people. That's what I'm worried about. I've already told Du Wei he should transfer his wife to the provincial capital in a few days. Sooner or later, something will happen if the couple doesn't live together for a long time. I can't let him ruin his future by women like you. Old Wu, did you hear what I said? Miss shook his arm and said, and you, eat less pills, don't be unable to move when you see a beautiful woman, spread your seed everywhere and cause trouble implicating Du Wei. Our son is our hope. But Wu Bozhong did not hear. He had already fallen asleep next to Miss, snoring. Chapter 3, 1. Go to the airport. Going to the airport to pick up a guest from Beijing had been agreed upon yesterday, but when Zhong Tianyi was woken up from bed by Du Wei's call this morning, he still seemed reluctant. Didn't you say the plane is at 10:30 a.m.? There's no need to go so early, right? Zhong Tianyi climbed into the Audi parked downstairs of his apartment, yawning as if he hadn't woken up yet, and asked lazily, It's almost 8 o'clock. Have you not slept well yet? Du Wei was listening to music, turned off the sound, and turned his face to glance at Zhong Tianyi, saying in an ambiguous tone, I don't think you look very energetic. Is it from practicing Yuanji Gong or having too much sex? Zhong Tianyi sat silently in the passenger seat. He closed his eyes, stretched out 2 fingers to pinch his temples, and massaged them back and forth a few times while exhaling a long breath from his chest. This was one of the prescribed movements for cultivating the Yuanji Gong. Du Wei took Zhong Tianyi's silence as tacit agreement and continued. After a woman has a child, she generally transfers her energy to the child and is not very interested in sex. Could it be that your wife is an exception? Du Wei's words were almost obscene, and Zhong Tianyi had no choice but to retort. Your child is already in elementary school. Don't you know this better than I? How can my wife be compared to your wife? Du Wei laughed slyly twice and said self-deprecatingly, Zhang Lili and Meng Fei are like one in heaven and one on earth. The taste is different. Otherwise, would you have divorced your previous wife? Since that's the case, why don't you divorce Zhang Lili too? Zhong Tianyi retorted. You have a lot of beautiful women around you, and you haven't eaten less late grass. You and that beautiful vice editor-in-chief Jiang Xin have something going on, right? Where did you hear this rumor from? Du Wei asked, glancing at him sideways. Did Wang Sheng say it? What does it matter whether he said it or not? Besides Zhang Lili, probably not many people don't know about the relationship between you two, right? Du Wei continued to argue. Wang Sheng himself is interested in her, so he's putting the blame on me, right? It's outrageous. I've met Jiang Xin. She's not an easy person to deal with. With Wang Sheng's personality, can he be her opponent? Zhong Tianyi curled his lips and sneered. I heard that Jiang Xin is still single. I suggest you pay attention and not let a woman ruin a lifetime of cleverness. I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. Whether you listen or not is up to you. They were initially just joking, but now Zhong Tianyi seemed to be serious. Du Wei didn't know what to say. He had no choice but to stop talking and step on the gas pedal. The Audi silently drove out of the Paris residence complex where Zhong Tianyi lived. The weather was somewhat gloomy, and the sky above the city was heavy with smog, as if it were about to rain. It was the peak of the morning commute, and the roads were jammed with vehicles. The Audi moved slowly forward like a little worm. Fortunately, they had plenty of time to pick up the guest. They didn't need to be too anxious. Given this weather, the plane is likely to be delayed. Du Wei glanced at the time on the dashboard and muttered, That's why I said there's no need to go so early. Zhong Tianyi stretched his body back, leaned his head against the back of the seat, closed his eyes and pretended to doze off, but opened his eyes again in less than a minute and said to Du Wei, I'm just wondering, is it necessary for you and me to mobilize and personally go to the airport to pick up a badong? Of course it's necessary, Du Wei said, looking ahead with a serious expression. Ba Dong is not the same Ba Dong as before. He's now the big boss of Beijing Hurricane Investment. So what? Zhong Tianyi curled his lips dismissively. Although I'm just a small boss, I know a lot of big bosses, even those with tens or hundreds of billions. There's no need to be so humble with Ba Dong. Ba Dong is not just a boss. Don't forget that his wife is the daughter of a founding general. Du Wei swept Zhong Tianyi with his peripheral vision. His brother-in-law is not an ordinary person either. I've heard that many provincial governors seek him out when they visit Beijing. Nowadays, having money is not enough. Take you, for example. You've made a lot of money these years, but you also often run into walls and you're discouraged. You even joined my godfather's sect to become a senior disciple and practice the Yuanji Great Law, right? Duwei's words seemed to touch a sore spot for Zhang Tianyi. He closed his eyes again, leaned his head against the back of the seat, and stopped talking. From the rearview mirror in front of the driver's seat, Duwei saw that Zhang Tianyi's forehead lines had become particularly obvious. In addition to his slightly pale and bloated body, he looked a little old. Duwei remembered that Zhang Tianyi was 2 years younger than him. Seeming to ease the previous argument, he said in a close tone that only friends had, "Old Zhang, there's something you have to help me with. You, Duwei, are now a figure who can stir up wind and rain in the cultural industry of Dongjiang," Zhang Tianyi said without raising his eyelids. "What could you possibly need my help with?" "Don't tease me, old Zhang," Duwei said seriously. "The group is running into a little trouble. A fantasy novel published in Popular Art's Fantasy Edition was recently sued for plagiarism." "Just sue then. It's not the first time a work published in your Popular Art has been sued for plagiarism," Zhang Tianyi said dismissively. "If there's compensation, it's the author's responsibility. It doesn't have much to do with the magazine, right? But this time is different. This time, the plaintiff sued us and the author as joint defendants. If we lose, we have to pay the same amount of compensation," Duwei said. "The problem is not even here. The problem is that the plaintiff's lawyer is your sister." Zhang Tianyi's head suddenly lifted from the back of the seat, looking at Duwei in surprise. "Are you saying Gu Zheng?" "Who else could it be? The trial is next month," Duwei said with a wry smile. "I haven't seen Gu Zheng for so many years since she graduated. I didn't expect to meet her this time, but in court." "My sister has a stubborn temper. I've rarely seen her for so many years since she graduated," Zhang Tianyi sighed. "She likes to make her own decisions and never listens to me." "You are, after all, siblings and have been dependent on each other since childhood," Duwei said evasively. "Can you ask Gu Zheng to meet me? I want to meet her." "Didn't you two know each other when you were studying at Dongda?" Zhang Tianyi asked, a little strangely. "You can ask her yourself. Why do you need me to say anything?" Duwei said hesitantly. "Gu Zheng is a big lawyer now. She might not give me the time of day, right?" Seeing Duwei's embarrassed look, Zhang Tianyi said, "Gu Zheng is currently attending a conference at the Phoenix Island Resort. You might run into her." Seeing Duwei's skepticism, he took out a business card from his pocket. "This is her business card. If you don't run into her, you can call her." "Okay, I'll try," Duwei said, taking the business card and putting it into the toolbox next to the driver's seat. The Audi drove out of the city and soon entered the airport expressway. It only takes a maximum of half an hour to get from the city to the airport. The Dongjiang International Airport was put into operation last year and is situated at the junction of the provincial capital, Dajiang City, and the Niangzhou Lake District. It is almost equidistant from both Dajiang City and Niangzhou Lake District to the airport, and both are newly built expressways. After the Audi drove out of the city and onto the airport expressway, the ride was smooth, and it arrived in just over half an hour. Duwei parked the car in the parking lot, took out the car key, and was about to get out when he saw unmoving Zhang Tianyi sitting in the passenger seat. He then urged him. Zhang Tianyi raised his finger and pointed to the watch on his wrist. "There's still an hour before the plane arrives. You can wait if you'd like. I'll go later." Seeing Zhang Tianyi's listless appearance, Duwei hesitated and said, "All right, then you can rest in the car for a while and come over after the plane arrives." After saying that, he threw the car key to Zhang Tianyi and walked towards the waiting hall alone. Duwei remembered that the last time he went to Beijing to visit Badong, Zhang Tianyi also made all kinds of excuses to shirk his responsibility, and in the end, he went alone. In fact, Zhang Tianyi and Badong were real townsmen and friends. He and Badong only met later through Zhang Tianyi. But what could he do? Zhang Tianyi's temper was so strange. If he didn't want to do something, you wouldn't be able to force him to do it, no matter how much you tried. Over the years, Zhang Tianyi had given him enough face. As the vice president of the Popular Art Magazine Council, The membership fee alone was 50,000, not to mention that Zhang Tianyi donated a massive sum of money when his godfather built the Wugong Shrine. Of course, he had also greatly helped Zhang Tianyi over the years. First, he helped him transfer Meng Fei from Chuzhou to the provincial song and dance troupe through Song Qiangkun's connections. Not only did the family quickly settle in the provincial capital, but they also moved the company's business over. Later, when the magazine developed tertiary industries, Du Wei cooperated with Zhang Tianyi through Lang Tao's connections to create cultural tourism projects on Nyangzhu Lake and Phoenix Island, which made his company a lot of money. Of course, he also got a lot of benefits, a win-win situation. The magazine could not have developed to its current scale without Zhang Tianyi's support. Therefore, when Popular Art Magazine was restructured 2 years ago, and Popular Art Media Group Company Limited was established, the first thing Du Wei thought of was to let Zhang Tianyi join the board of directors. But since then, Zhang Tianyi's temper had become more and more strange, and his business had become worse day by day. It was as if he had become a different person. Usually, besides going to Phoenix Island to practice the Yuanji Gong, he stayed at home, or else he gave alms to the big and small temples in Dajiang City, and he was responsive to all the charitable organizations that sought him out. He couldn't even say how much money he donated each year, and he even wore the crown of philanthropist, appearing on television and in newspapers more than once. The couple often argued about this. Once, Meng Fei came to Du Wei, weeping and complaining, saying that if things continued like this, Zhang Tianyi might go bankrupt before their daughter grew up. Zhang Tianyi and Meng Fei had been married for several years and had not had children. Later, he took the Zhang Tianyi couple to see his godfather to seek medical treatment, and Meng Fei soon became pregnant. After the child was born, Zhang Tianyi invited Du Wei to drink alone, continuing until midnight. Both of them were drunk until the next day before returning home. The child was already 3 years old and in kindergarten. Zhang Tianyi picked him up and dropped him off every day, treating him like a treasure. Thinking of Meng Fei's face, like a pear blossom in the rain, even more moving than before she gave birth, Du Wei couldn't help but feel a little sympathetic. The shape of the main building in the airport's waiting hall was like a shell, and its entire body was milky white. If the weather were clear, it would be transparent and extremely dazzling under the sunlight. But today was a cloudy day, and the dark clouds hung low, making the waiting hall look like a head of cabbage that had been deformed after being left for too long, appearing somewhat dim. The air was filled with a strong smell of detergent. The entrance was on the left wing of the waiting hall, and the exit was on the right wing of the waiting hall. Du Wei once walked from the entrance to the exit, which took him more than 10 minutes. Du Wei often traveled on business during these years, and he had been to the airports of most provincial capitals and municipalities in the country. In his opinion, whether in terms of scale or modernization, apart from the Capital International Airport, it was the newly built Dongjiang International Airport. It is said that a plane takes off or lands every 3 minutes, which also shows Dongjiang Province's pivotal position in the country's economic development. The arrival area was crowded, with people picking up passengers. As soon as a flight arrived, passengers poured out of the exit like a tide. The people picking up passengers stretched their necks as high as giraffes, and from time to time, someone would shout loudly and happily greet a passenger. Some held up signs with the names of the people they were picking up, standing motionless like tree stumps until someone walked over with a luggage bag and pulled a suitcase, reporting their name like underground party members doing a secret signal. Du Wei looked at the flight schedule. The flight that Ba Dong and his wife were on was taking off and landing on time, and they were expected to arrive in nearly an hour. He came out of the crowded arrival hall and walked to the trash can at the door. He took out a pack of Zhonghua cigarettes from his pocket. He found that he had left the lighter in the car, so he asked a short man who was smoking next to the trash can for a light. When he took the fire, he found that the other person's fingers were scorched yellow, indicating that he was a heavy smoker. He lit a cigarette, returned the fire to the other party, and then turned around, leaned against the wall, and smoked while thinking about the last time he went to Beijing to visit Ba Dong. At that time, Du Wei was mainly going to visit Hongye, Hong in Beijing. He had contacted Song Xiaofan in advance, wanting to contact Hong Taihong through her. Song Xiaofan and Hong Taihong were cousins. She went to the United States shortly after graduating from Dongjiang University's writers' class. Du Wei had lost contact with her. This time, he still managed to obtain Song Xiaofan's contact information through Old Man, Song Qiangkun. Du Wei ultimately did not meet Hong Taihong. He didn't even give his cousin a face, letting him appreciate the unfathomable nature of this Hong Ye of Beijing. According to Song Xiaofan, Hong Taihong had a younger sister named Yan Bei, on whom he doted the most. If he couldn't meet Hong Taihong, being able to meet his sister and ask Yan Bei to speak to her brother would also be considered a worthwhile outcome, making the trip not in vain. Du Wei never dreamed that Yan Bei's husband was Ba Dong. After graduating from Dongjiang Economic Management College, Ba Dong initially worked as a salesman in Factory 6803 in Miyun, Beijing. He even came to Dongjiang to find Du Wei and Zhong Tianyi. Speaking of which, Ba Dong was able to open the sales market for the Hurricane motorcycles produced by Factory 6803 in Dongjiang, and he and Zhong Tianyi contributed significantly. Of course, they also made substantial profits from it. Later, Ba Dong improved significantly in Beijing and rarely returned to Dongjiang. Their communication became less and less until it was completely interrupted. During this time, he occasionally heard some news about Ba Dong, stating that he had married the daughter of a founding general and had become an influential figure. Hearing this, Du Wei couldn't help but feel a sense of emotion when he thought of the past, when Ba Dong and Li Hong were in love. At number 9, Bing Ma Hutong Du Wei did not meet Ba Dong, but he did meet Hong Yanbei. He also unexpectedly learned from Song Xiaofan that Hong Yanbei's health had not been very good and that the couple had not had children after being married for many years. This made him suddenly think, if he could invite Ba Dong and Hong Yanbei to Phoenix Island for a trip, then a significant event could be accomplished. The major event in Du Wei's heart was the shareholding reform of the Popular Art Media Group. Since he took over as president of Popular Art magazine, he not only turned a magazine that relied on financial funding from a loss into a profit, but also merged the other two magazines under the Provincial Federation of Literary and Art Circles to form the Popular Art Media Group. Today, in addition to the 3 magazines under its jurisdiction, the group's business had also expanded to include film and television animation, tourism, real estate, and other fields. It has launched a 2-way cooperation with the Niangzhou Lake District government, investing in several tourist hotels, including the Phoenix Island Resort. The company's total assets had exceeded 100 million. Du Wei naturally gained fame and fortune as the head of Popular Art Media. He has not only been elected as an outstanding entrepreneur in Dongjiang Province for 5 consecutive years, but also became a member of the Provincial Political Consultative Conference and the vice president of the Provincial Photographers Association, making him a red-hot star figure in the business and art circles of Dongjiang Province. Not long ago, Lang Tao was promoted from Deputy Director of the Provincial Department of Culture to Deputy Minister of the Provincial Party Committee's Propaganda Department in charge of literature and art. Lang Tao was also in charge of cultural work when he was the Deputy District Mayor of Niangzhou District. The work of Popular Art magazine had always received strong support from Lang Tao. After being promoted to Deputy Minister of the Provincial Party Committee's Propaganda Department, his first stop for investigation was the Popular Art magazine. Deputy Minister Lang was worthy of being a doctor who had studied abroad. His ideas were much more open than those of ordinary leaders. He fully affirmed the work of Popular Art Media Group, put forward higher requirements, and clearly instructed that the next goal of the group was to transform into a joint stock company and strive to be listed on the Shenzhen Stock Exchange to set an example for the upgrading of the province's cultural industry. These are Deputy Minister Lang's original words. Du Wei was deeply encouraged, but he also understood that the group's current output value, profit tax, and assets were still far from meeting the listing requirements. He would have to take a shortcut if he wanted to be listed quickly. At that time, he went to Beijing to take a shortcut. He had specifically reported to Lang Tao in advance, but Deputy Minister Lang neither explicitly agreed nor opposed. This was a kind of leadership art. Although Lang Tao came from an academic background, he had been in the officialdom for many years and knew that some things should only be done but not said, and some things should only be said but not done. Du Wei knew this very well. After dealing with Lang Tao for so many years, they had some tacit understanding. After returning from Beijing, Du Wei went to the Provincial Party Committee Propaganda Department to give Lang Tao a detailed report and propose inviting Ba Dong and Yan Bei to take a trip to Phoenix Island. "That Mr. Ba Dong is Mr. Ba from Dongjiang?" Lang Tao asked thoughtfully. After receiving an affirmative answer, he said, "Inviting him to visit his hometown is a good idea. Phoenix Island is now a cultural and tourism demonstration area in the province, making it worth a visit." Then, in a suggestive tone, he said, "Invite them in the name of your popular art media group. The reception specifications should be grand. Hold a welcome banquet. I will personally welcome their couple and wash away the dust." "This is already in the plan." Du Wei nodded repeatedly, complimenting without sincerity. "But I didn't expect the minister to come forward in person. They must be very happy." Lang Tao didn't pay any attention to Du Wei's flattery, or perhaps he was used to it. He said in an instructive tone, "The specifications should be high, but there shouldn't be too many people attending, and they shouldn't be too diverse. Since they are coming as a couple, we should try to make it as private as possible." "That's what I was thinking too." Du Wei, who was always skilled at reading people's faces, immediately grasped Lang Tao's meaning and said, "Minister, how about you attend with Teacher He?" Diplomacy also emphasizes reciprocity. Du Wei was talking about Lang Tao's wife, He Li. He Li used to work as an administrator at the Dongjiang University Library, but later transferred to the library department as a teacher, and Du Wei had always called her Teacher He. "Oh, she's busy taking students to class and helping our daughter with extracurricular activities," Lang Tao said casually. "Her father's been in poor health recently, so she's even less available." Du Wei knew that He Li was the daughter of He Shouwu, the former president of Dongjiang University, and he also knew that Lang Tao's relationship with his wife had not been perfect. The suggestion he had made just now was originally intended to please Lang Tao. Hearing his words at this moment, he felt slightly embarrassed and didn't say anything more. "Your idea is good. To create a private atmosphere, people attending the banquet should bring their wives or husbands as much as possible." Lang Tao changed the topic. "By the way, who are you planning to invite?" Du Wei had not completely gotten rid of the embarrassment and hesitated momentarily. "Well, I haven't completely figured it out yet, but Zhang Tianyi, in addition to the group's senior executives, will definitely attend. He is not only the director of our group and the Phoenix Island Resort, but also from Pai Town, like Ba Dong, and is a true townsman." He paused and said, "Zhang Tianyi's wife, Meng Fei, is now the head of the Resort Hotel Art Troupe. She and Zhang Tianyi will have no problem attending." "Didn't you transfer your wife from Chuzhou to work in your group?" Lang Tao suddenly asked. "It's not easy for a couple to be reunited after being separated for so many years. You can bring your wife along too." Du Wei didn't expect Lang Tao to give him such a checkmate. "My wife? She just came from a small place. Besides doing calculations, she doesn't know anything. I wouldn't dare to embarrass myself." He shook his head like a rattle. "Minister, to tell you the truth, if it weren't for the overall situation, I would have divorced her long ago." "Oh, is it that serious?" Lang Tao seemed not to believe it. "Yes, as soon as I mention divorce, she tries to kill herself and threatens to go to the provincial capital to complain to the leaders, saying that I'm a Chen Shimei and even bringing out her father," Du Wei said with a wry smile. "My father-in-law is the leader of the Chuzhou City Federation of Trade Unions and was recently promoted to vice chairman of the Municipal Political Consultative Conference. I can't afford to offend him." Du Wei stopped talking when he realized what he was saying. "Look at my mouth. How did I get to talking about these messy things when we were discussing work?" "It's nothing. Every family has its problems, Lang Tao smiled faintly. Didn't Tolstoy say that happy families are all alike, but every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way? Du Wei felt that Lang Tao was a very understanding leader, and at the same time felt that the distance between him and Deputy Minister Lang had shortened again. Although he and Lang Tao had frequent contact over the years, and because of Song Lao's relationship, Lang Tao had always supported his work. Du Wei had never dared to be presumptuous in public or private. Officials who rank higher can scare people to death, and he understood this rule in officialdom. What's more, Lang Tao's rank was far higher than his. An announcement sounded in the arrival hall. Flight 2278 from Beijing to Dongjiang International Airport has arrived. Please, staff, prepare to pick up passengers. Du Wei threw the cigarette butt into the trash can and turned to walk toward the arrival gate. 2. Resorts. After Du Wei picked up Badong and his wife at the airport, he arranged for them to stay at the Phoenix Island Resort Hotel. The resort was the only star-rated hotel on Phoenix Island. Although only 3-star, it was a complex of guest rooms, catering, and leisure entertainment. In addition to a conference room that accommodated 300 people, there was an outdoor swimming pool, bowling alley, etc. All indicators far exceeded the standards of a 3-star tourist hotel and were not much worse than the Niangzhou Lake Hotel. As the number of tourists to Phoenix Island had continued to grow in recent years, more and more people stayed at the resort hotel. Even some meetings or business activities originally held at the Niangzhou Lake Hotel had been moved to the Phoenix Resort. The welcome dinner was scheduled for 6 p.m. at the Lotus Chinese restaurant in the resort hotel. After Du Wei brought Ba Dong and his wife to the hotel, he was busy preparing dinner. The welcome dinner was the first event in Ba Dong and his wife's Phoenix Island tour plan, and a crucial part of the popular art Mudia Group's shareholding reform and listing. No mistakes could be made. He dared not let go of any details, from the private room to the dishes. Of course, the most important thing was the list of people attending the dinner. He originally wanted to invite his godfather, Wu Bozhong, but he was rejected. In recent years, his godfather and the Wugong Shrine had become more and more famous, and the number of people admiring the reputation, visiting from outside the island, outside the district, and even from all over the province and the country had also increased. Some of them were even celebrities. The master heir of his godfather had also increased, and it was impossible to invite him to ordinary events. Du Wei had no choice but to give up and temporarily replace him with Li Hong and Shu Ku. Shu Ku was now not only his godfather's assistant, but also the Secretary General of the Yuanji Cultural Research Association. It was also appropriate for her to attend the banquet in place of his godfather. It's just that Du Wei thought of the relationship that Li Hong had once had with Lang Tao and Ba Dong and hesitated a bit, but he quickly dismissed his concerns and resolutely added Shu Ku to the list. Shu Ku, Li Hong. He silently recited these two names, and a faint, elusive smile flashed across his mouth. Around 4 p.m., Lang Tao arrived. Du Wei had just walked to the entrance of the resort hotel when he saw Lang Tao's Nissan sedan drive over. After the car stopped, the hotel doorman at the entrance opened the car door, and Lang Tao got out. Du Wei quickly trotted up to greet him. Perhaps today's event didn't count as official business. Deputy Minister Lang wasn't wearing a formal suit but a beige jacket, which made him seem less like a leader and more like an elegant intellectual. Du Wei looked at his watch. There was still more than an hour before the dinner, so he asked, "Minister Lang, would you like me to open a room for you to rest for a while?" "Are Mr. Ba and his wife well rested?" Lang Tao also raised his wrist to look at his watch. Du Wei said, "They've been resting in their room since lunch. They should be well rested now." "Okay, then I'll go see them." With that, he lifted his foot to walk into the hotel. Du Wei took a few quick steps to catch up with Lang Tao, and as he walked, he subconsciously glanced at the gold Rolex watch on Lang Tao's wrist. Du Wei's watch was exactly the same as Lang Tao's, both Rolexes. After Popular Art magazine was restructured into a group company 2 years ago, Du Wei led some employees to Europe for a study tour to celebrate this grand event. In name, It was a study tour, but it was sightseeing. Dewey originally wanted to invite Deputy Minister Lang to lead the team, but he was afraid of violating the rules and regulations, and he refused no matter what. On that trip, they traveled to more than a dozen European countries. When they passed through Switzerland, he bought 2 Rolexes, one for himself and one for Lang Tao. At first, Deputy Minister Lang refused to accept it, but later reluctantly accepted it and insisted on paying. Dewey couldn't resist and had to let him pay 2,000 yuan. In fact, that Rolex costed more than 20,000 euros, which translated to nearly 200,000 yuan. Dewey accompanied Lang Tao to the room where Ba Dong and his wife stayed. They only saw Ba Dong alone in the room when they knocked on the door. They were staying in a suite, with a bedroom inside and a living room outside, which was very spacious. Perhaps he had rested well. Dewey felt that Ba Dong's complexion was much better than at the airport. At this moment, he was sitting at a writing desk facing a portable computer. Seeing Lang Tao come to visit in person, he quickly got up to greet him. "Mr. Ba, welcome to Phoenix Island." Lang Tao held Ba Dong's hand without letting go immediately. "I heard that your hometown is Chuzhou. I also lived in Chuzhou when I was a child." "Oh, really?" Ba Dong seemed very happy. At the same time, he pointed to Dewey next to him and said, "General Manager Du is also from Chuzhou, and Wang Sheng, who is your subordinate now, right? Zhong Tianyi, General Manager Zhong, is from Pai Town. Compared to your Chuzhou, we are country bumpkins." "Mr. Ba is joking. You are now a celebrity in the Beijing business world. The development of Dongjiang still depends on your support." No, Minister, you're too kind. Dongjiang's development momentum is also in a leading position in the country. I'm here to learn this time. Mr. Ba is too modest. You are a business genius. The development of Phoenix Island has just started. You should offer more suggestions. Minister Lang, you flatter me. I heard General Manager Du say you are a returned PhD and a scholar-type leader. I hope you will give me more guidance in the future. The two chatted while sitting down on the sofa. Behind them was a floor-to-ceiling window with the curtains wide open, and the scenery of the lake and mountains was fully displayed. The weather was still a bit gloomy, as if it were about to rain. While Lang Tao and Ba Dong were talking, Dewey picked up a peach from the coffee table and handed it to Ba Dong. "This is a honey peach, a specialty of Phoenix Island. Try it." As he spoke, he suddenly remembered something. "Why haven't I seen your wife?" Ba Dong took the honey peach. After hearing Dewey's words, he smiled. "Oh, my wife praised the scenery on the island all the way from the airport. She went for a walk by the lake after her afternoon nap." Dewey felt that Ba Dong's smile was a little forced. Lang Tao didn't notice this and followed Ba Dong's words, saying, "I heard from General Manager Du that your wife is an editor at the Television Drama Production Center. Her ability to appreciate art and nature is always higher than ordinary people." "My wife is from the north. This is her first time in the south. Everything feels new to her," Ba Dong said, turning his gaze to Dewey, seeming to want him to testify to his words. Dewey subconsciously avoided Ba Dong's gaze. What could he say? His friendship with Ba Dong was far less than that of Zhong Tianyi and Wang Sheng, and he couldn't even talk about understanding him. Although he was honored to visit No. 9 Bingma Hutong on his last trip to Beijing, he didn't see Ba Dong himself. Later, he made a special trip to Hurricane Investment headquarters before meeting Ba Dong. His first impression was that Ba Dong didn't seem as proud as the rumors said. He was vague and ambiguous when he talked about the group's listing. Song Xiaofan once told him that although Ba Dong was Hurricane Investment's chairman and general manager, the actual controller was Hong Taihong. Dewey realized that if he wanted to accomplish big things, he couldn't rely solely on Ba Dong. Hong Taihong was a mysterious figure who was hard to meet. The only thing left was to find a breakthrough through Yan Bei. "Ba Dong is just an executor in Hurricane Investment. My cousin and sister have a very good relationship. If you win Yan Bei over, you've won Taihong over." Song Xiaofan said this to Dewey on his last trip to Beijing. After returning, Dewey repeated this sentence verbatim to Lang Tao, and thus there was this Phoenix Island tour for Ba Dong and Yan Bei. The whole plan was perfect. The only regret was that Song Xiaofan had to rush to write a script and couldn't return with Ba Dong and Yan Bei this time. Before he knew it, nearly an hour had passed. Dewey said to Lang Tao in a tone of asking for instructions, "Minister Lang, it's almost time. Shall we go to the restaurant?" Lang Tao said, "Okay," and stood up from the sofa. Ba Dong also stood up. The three of them walked to the door of the room together. When they reached the hotel lobby, Ba Dong told Lang Tao and Du Wei, "You go to the restaurant first. I'll go to the lake to call my wife." After saying that, he hurried out of the hotel. The name of the private room was Grass Growing and Orioles Flying. When Du Wei and Lang Tao walked into the private room, Zhang Tianyi, Yan Kui, the deputy general manager of Popular Art Group, Jiang Xin, the deputy editor-in-chief, and Wang Sheng were already there. Zhang Tianyi rested in the guest room after arriving at the resort hotel from the airport. He also arrived at this moment and was talking in a low voice with Wang Sheng in the corner of the private room. When he saw Du Wei accompanying Deputy Minister Lang in, he did not get up to say hello. Lang Tao shook hands with Yan Kui, Jiang Xin, and Wang Sheng one by one. When he walked to Wang Sheng, Du Wei introduced in a low voice, "Wang Sheng is also from Pai Town and a childhood friend who grew up with Ba Dong. He graduated with a master's degree from Dongda." I know. He was my father's graduate student." Lang Tao looked at Wang Sheng and nodded slightly. Wang Sheng met Lang Tao's gaze and said, "Minister Lang, we met once when you went to Nyangzhou Normal School for investigation." "Really? I don't remember." "I'm still used to calling you Professor Lang. While at Dongda, I listened to your Heidegger lecture and even handed you a note." Lang Tao seemed uninterested in Wang Sheng mentioning the past of Dongda, as if it was not a proud experience. He just hummed perfunctorily twice. "Wang Sheng is my right-hand man now." Seeing the two of them chatting warmly, Du Wei interjected. "Editor-in-chief Wu Yang is getting old, and his health is not good. The group's editing business now relies entirely on him." Speaking of this, he pointed to the other two subordinates. "And Deputy Editor-in-Chief Zhang and Deputy General Manager Yan are the group's pillars. I couldn't handle it without them, even if I had 3 heads and 6 arms. It mainly depends on the strong support of Minister Lang and the wise leadership of General Manager Du." Deputy General Manager Yan Kui piled a smile on Lang Tao and Du Wei, speaking in a heavy Henan accent. His duck-like voice buzzed in the soundproofed private room. His short, fat figure and always wrinkled suit seemed a bit out of harmony with the environment in the private room. Standing next to Yan Kui, Jiang Xin did not speak, but a faint smile hung on the corner of her mouth. She was nearly 40, but did not gain weight at all and maintained her slender figure. Coupled with the unique temperament of a knowledgeable woman, she appeared to have a special charm. Standing with her made Yan Kui seem even more vulgar. Even Jiang Xin realized this, but Yan Kui did not even know it at all and wanted to continue chatting with Lang Tao. "Minister Lang, regarding the group's distribution work," but Lang Tao seemed not to hear or could not understand his Henan accent and had already turned around. After Wang Sheng exchanged a few polite greetings with Lang Tao, he retreated to the back and continued to talk to Zhang Tianyi. Du Wei accompanied Lang Tao to sit down on the sofa on one side of the private room while asking the waiter to make tea. The private room was large, covered with velvet carpets, and the chandelier in the center of the ceiling was shaped like a huge lotus leaf, surrounded by small lotus flowers. Each lotus flower was as white as jade and radiated light, illuminating the private room exceptionally brightly. Before long, the waiter brought the tea up. Du Wei knew that Lang Tao usually didn't sleep well and rarely drank green or black tea, so he ordered a cup of chrysanthemum tea. He ordered a cup of local green tea from Phoenix Island for himself. While drinking tea, he looked around the private room, his eyes sweeping over Zhang Tianyi, Wang Sheng, Jiang Xin, Yan Kui, and others in turn. Even adding Ba Dong, his wife Yan Bei, and Shu Ku, there were fewer than 10 people in total, while the large round table in the middle of the private room could accommodate 15 people for dinner. After Li Hong graduated from Dongda, Lang Tao lost contact with her, and Badong had also once been madly in love with Li Hong. What would the scene be like today when two former couples suddenly met here? Shuku hadn't arrived yet, so she mightn't have come. Due wasn't sure. Did he want Shuku to come or did he not want her to come? He tried to call Shuku to confirm, but he put his phone down as soon as he took it out. This contradictory feeling made Due more and more uneasy, as if he were worried that his thoughts would be detected. He took advantage of Lang Tao's looking down at his phone to get up quietly and walk out of the private room. Due had just reached the private room door when he met Shuku and Meng Fei. Although both women were very beautiful, their temperaments were completely different. If Meng Fei was a blooming lotus flower, Shuku was like a hidden rose. Due had never seen these two women together before, and he didn't even know if they knew each other. Seeing them arm in arm, looking as intimate as sisters, he was almost startled at this moment. "How is it you—" "I'm very busy. I have a performance tonight, but old Zong insisted on my coming to the dinner, saying that there were important guests from Beijing." Meng Fei was wearing a performance costume. As soon as she saw Due, she said, "General Manager Du, we're not late, are we?" No. Due hummed, turning his gaze from Meng Fei's face, which was covered with thick makeup, to Shuku. "You go in." After saying that, he stepped aside and made a "please enter" gesture. Then, without waiting for Meng Fei and Shuku to walk into the private room, he fled outside the hotel lobby. As soon as Due walked out of the resort hotel, he saw Ba Dong and Yan Bei. The weather was a little cold. Ba Dong had taken off his coat and put it on his wife. He only wore a shirt, supported Yan Bei's shoulders with both hands, and looked like a loyal servant. Seeing Due greet them, he said, a little embarrassed, "The scenery of Phoenix Island is so beautiful that Yan Bei was fascinated and couldn't bear to eat. Sorry to keep you waiting." "Mrs. Ba, we have specially arranged 2 days of sightseeing activities for you and Mr. Ba," Due said equally diligently. "It's not too late to see the scenery after you taste the cuisine of Phoenix Island." But before Due finished speaking, Yan Bei broke free from Ba Dong's arm and said seriously, "General Manager Du, please don't call me Mrs. Ba, just call me by my name." Due was stunned and glanced at Ba Dong, whose face was expressionless as if he hadn't heard. He coughed awkwardly and said, smiling, Hong Ms. Teacher Hong." Due accompanied Ba Dong and his wife back to the hotel lobby and saw a banner hanging on one side of the lobby, which read, "Warmly congratulate the grand opening of the annual meeting of the Dongjiang Provincial Young Lawyers Association." A row of tables was under the banner, and several young people were busy registering. Due suddenly remembered the business card that Zong Tianyi had given him. He turned to Ba Dong and said, "You go to the private room first. I have something to do." Due walked to the banner. Before he could open his mouth, the young man in charge of registration asked him, "Please show your conference notice and ID card so that we can process your conference procedures." "Oh, I'm not here to attend the meeting. I'm asking about someone," Due quickly said. "Excuse me, has lawyer Gu Zhang registered?" "What is your relationship with lawyer Gu?" The young man looked at him warily. "I'm his client," Due said, taking out his business card. The other party took the business card and looked at it carefully before saying, "Lawyer Gu has already completed the conference procedures and is staying in room 302. If you have anything to do, you can call her room." "Okay, thank you." Due turned and left. On the way to the private room, Due again had a trace of unease in his heart. He hadn't made up his mind to go to see Gu Zhang. What he was most concerned about was the situation in the private room at this moment. He tried to slow down his pace. It was only 50 meters from the hotel lobby to the private room. He walked and stopped, but it took him nearly 5 minutes. The linen carpet on the ground was very thick, and stepping on it was like stepping on a cloud as if he was flying. 3. At the wine table. Lang Tao was drinking tea. The steam from the teacup clouded the lenses of his nearsighted glasses, and he had to take them off and put them on the coffee table. Therefore, when Meng Fei and Shu Ku walked into the private room, Lang Tao didn't see clearly. He heard someone call out, "Minister Lang!" Her voice was clear and a little coquettish. He raised his head and saw a woman in a long green dress walking gracefully from the private room door to greet him. Lang Tao recognized her as Meng Fei, the head of the resort hotel art troupe. He had watched the art troupe's performance before coming to the resort for research and was deeply impressed by the program Lotus Fairy, where Meng Fei was the lead dancer. Du Wei had specially told him that Meng Fei was Zhong Tianyi's wife. Since then, he had remembered this former dancer of the provincial song and dance troupe, but he didn't have much of an impression of her husband, Zhong Tianyi. At this moment, when Lang Tao saw Meng Fei's beautiful face covered with makeup, thinking that the resort hotel art troupe would also hold a special performance for Ba Dong and his wife after the dinner, and this director would definitely have a program, he politely stood up and grasped the hand that she extended to him. "Oh, Director Meng Fei, what wonderful program do you have tonight?" "I won't tell you yet, it's a secret." Meng Fei acted like a little woman, smiling mysteriously, turning her face to look around the private room as if she were looking for someone. Later, she turned her gaze to her husband, Zhong Tianyi, who was talking to Wang Sheng, raised her voice and asked, "Old Zhong, you left home early in the morning. Where are the guests from Beijing that you and General Manager Du picked up?" As Meng Fei left him and walked toward Zhong Tianyi, Lang Tao noticed another person who walked into the private room with her, a woman about Meng Fei's age. Lang Tao didn't have his glasses on and couldn't see clearly. He could only vaguely see that the woman was wearing a black dress, looking like a nun, and her snow-white face was like a crabapple flower in the mist, faintly visible. Lang Tao felt that it looked a bit familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen her. But he thought she must be a guest invited by Du Wei to welcome Ba Dong and his wife. Out of the habit of respecting ladies, which he had developed while studying abroad in his early years, he nodded politely like a gentleman and extended his hand. "This lady is—" But the other party did not reach out her hand. She looked at him coldly. Lang Tao felt a little embarrassed. Since he abandoned his studies and entered politics, he had been treated with the courtesy of a moon surrounded by stars all the way from deputy district mayor to deputy minister. To cover up his embarrassment, he took back his hand, picked up his nearsighted glasses from the coffee table, and put them on. When he turned his gaze to the black-clothed woman in front of him again, he couldn't help but be stunned, widening his eyes. Lang Tao recognized her. The black-clothed woman standing in front of him was Li Hong. Yes, Li Hong, his lover from Dongjiang University, Li Hong. Although many years had passed, that full, slender figure, that face that could make fish sink and geese fall from the sky, and those bright yet slightly melancholy beautiful eyes made Lang Tao's heart suddenly light up, as if illuminated by lightning. He couldn't help but shout out, "It's you, Li Hong!" Lang Tao's voice was loud, causing the people in the private room who were originally whispering to stop and turn their gazes over in unison. "You've mistaken me." Lang Tao heard the black-clothed woman say coldly, and for a moment, he didn't know what to do. Could it be that he really mistook her? Just as he was feeling bewildered, Meng Fei walked over, looking at them in surprise. "Oh, I thought you knew each other. Deputy Minister Lang, let me introduce you. This beauty is Wu Bozhong's assistant, the Secretary General of the Yuanji Cultural Research Association, Shu Ku." Shu Ku. Lang Tao muttered this unfamiliar name as if he had fallen into a fog. "Shu Ku, this is Minister Lang." Before Meng Fei could finish her introduction, Li Hong had already turned around and walked to the other side of the private room, leaving Lang Tao standing awkwardly in place. At this moment, Ba Dong, Yanbei, and Du Wei walked into the private room one after another. Next, Du Wei asked everyone to sit down one by one. As the main guests, Ba Dong and Yanbei naturally sat in the upper seats. Lang Tao, as the leader invited by the host, sat in the sub-upper seat, and the others sat down in turn. Du Wei arranged everything in an orderly manner. Before long, the waiter began to serve dishes. The well-known Niangzhu Lake Hairy Crab was the main dish, each weighing half a pound. After serving several dishes in a row, Du Wei lengthened his tone and said, "Please invite Deputy Minister Lang of the Provincial Party Committee Propaganda Department to deliver a welcome speech. Everyone welcome." With Lang Tao's experience, dealing with such a small banquet was naturally nothing to him, but he seemed distracted and uneasy at this moment. The few short and perfunctory welcome speeches were stuttering and disorganized, surprising Du Wei sitting next to him. What was going on with Deputy Minister Lang, who had never used a manuscript for his reports at meetings? "Oh, Deputy Minister Lang didn't sleep well yesterday," Du Wei explained in a low voice to Ba Dong and Yan Bei, who were sitting in the upper seats. His voice was very low, and Lang Tao didn't hear. At this moment, Lang Tao stared intently at Shu Ku, who had always been silent, sitting across from him. He looked distracted. His mind was in a chaotic mess. In an instant, he seemed to have returned to the campus of Dongjiang University more than 10 years ago. In the lovers' forest, hidden by the trees, he and Li Hong nestled together and whispered to each other. Li Hong's intense and passionate body rippled like waves. He could see their shadows everywhere in the bar at the school gate, in the Maple Garden dance hall, and in that faculty dormitory under the Loquat Mountain. Li Hong's passionate recitation echoed in his ears. "At the window of dawn, I appear in your vision in the image of a small grass / let you smear, let you shape." And he would read the chapter of the Heidegger biography that he had just translated to Li Hong. In early February 1925, Heidegger invited Arendt to his office. It was a gloomy, rainy day. She came in, took off her raincoat, and took off the hat that deeply covered her face, revealing a shyness and bashfulness different from usual, and even her voice was not so bright and clear. Heidegger had a question-and-answer conversation with her on issues such as philosophy, religion, family, society, interests, and hobbies. She seemed to rely on her breath to utter the almost inaudible yes and no. The teacher discovered the highest qualities of her soul and spirit and experienced the irresistible wizard-like magic of the teacher. Lang Tao remembered that after listening, Li Hong raised her face, leaning against his chest, blocked him with those sensual lips, and murmured in a low voice, "Lang Tao, you are my monument." What happened later was that in that same lovers' forest where they had tried countless times, he announced his father's no and his own decision to break up in an almost ruthless tone. At that time, Li Hong was on the eve of graduation. Her father was arrested and imprisoned for corruption, and her mother was also under investigation. She was implicated as a result and was rejected by several employers. Later, he heard that Li Hong was forced to go to an unaccredited private university. He had gone to that private university to inquire about it, but was told that Li Hong had resigned and that her whereabouts were unknown. Since then, he had not heard any news about Li Hong. 10 years had passed, and Li Hong suddenly appeared in front of him like a fairy descending to earth. Lang Tao was stunned. He completely forgot his current identity and didn't care about losing his composure. He blurted out a name that was long gone but was once engraved in his heart. Li Hong. But she said, "You've mistaken me." Her name was Shu Ku. "Is her name really Shu Ku? Is she Wu Bozhong's assistant?" he asked Du Wei in a low voice. "Why haven't I seen her before when I went to the Wugong Shrine?" Du Wei stammered, hesitant to speak, dodging his gaze as if deliberately hiding something. This further increased the doubts in Lang Tao's heart. He raised his head and looked across. That face, those eyes, everything was so unfamiliar and everything was so familiar. He vaguely saw a glimmer of light flashing in those cold and beautiful eyes, like sunlight passing over a silent water surface, but the successive dark clouds quickly covered it and became dim again. After a few rounds of drinks, Du Wei, seeing that the atmosphere at the table was a bit dull, suggested, "Meng Fei, why don't you perform a program for everyone?" Singing and telling jokes at the dinner table, appealing to both refined and popular tastes, and including both risque and proper content, had been very popular in social situations in recent years. Meng Fei said, "If there's a program to perform, it should be you, General Manager Du, who takes the lead. In front of you, the head of the resort art troupe, I wouldn't dare to show off my axe." Du Wei looked at Zhang Tianyi, who was sitting to Meng Fei's right, and said, "Why don't you and old Zhang collaborate on a song husband and wife returning home together?" Zhang Tianyi was sitting on Meng Fei's left, but he didn't seem to hear and didn't respond to Du Wei's words. Meng Fei smoothed things over and said, "No, his broken voice is off-key. Let me do it." As she spoke, Meng Fei stood up from her seat, folded her hands in front of her chest, and cleared her throat. Everyone is familiar with the song, "The Waves of Honghu Lake," which comes from the opera The Red Guards of Honghu Lake. It's a traditional repertoire of the provincial song and dance troupe where I used to work. After coming to the resort hotel art troupe, I brought this song. Now I dedicate it to Mr. and Mrs. Ba from Beijing, as well as to the respected Deputy Minister Lang and everyone present. Worthy of being a professional actress, Meng Fei's song won enthusiastic applause. The atmosphere in the private room suddenly livened up. As soon as Meng Fei finished singing, Yan Kui, the Deputy General Manager of Popular Art Mudia Group, volunteered, "I'll perform a segment of Henan Bangzi Opera Lenin in 1918 for everyone." After saying that, he picked up his chopsticks and tapped on the small dish while shaking his head and singing, "Lenin sits in the Kremlin," calling out to Sverdlov to listen carefully. "I order Vasily to get the grain. It's so late and he hasn't returned." Sverdlov saw Lenin's anxiety and also sang, "I call out to Comrade Lenin. Don't worry. I asked Dzerzhinsky about this matter, and he also said that transportation in St. Petersburg is inconvenient. We got the grain, but there were no rail cars. Vasily has been working very hard, so you can rest assured my Vladimir Ilyich." Most of the people present had seen the movie Lenin in 1918 and were no strangers to this plot. Yan Kui combined performance and singing with that authentic Henan dialect, making everyone laugh. Old Yan is from Henan and used to study Bangzi opera specially. His singing skills are solid. Du Wei commented a few words and couldn't help but want to try. "When I worked at the Chuzhou City Workers' Cultural Palace, I learned a little model opera, Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy, but I don't remember it all. I only know a small part of We Are the Workers and Peasants Soldiers. I'll take this opportunity to dedicate it to Minister Lang and Mr. and Mrs. Ba from Beijing." Then, Du Wei left his seat, walked to the center of the private room, puffed out his chest, pulled back his abdomen, and struck a pose to sing. Du Wei's singing and acting skills were authentic, and he also inserted a few dialogues in Chuzhou dialect while singing, adding a comedic effect that the original play didn't have. "We are the workers and peasants soldiers, coming to the deep mountains. Why are you coming to the deep mountains? To eliminate the reactionaries and change the world. Can you beat them? Decades of revolution, fighting north and south. That's hard work. The Communist Party and Chairman Mao guide us forward. Don't mention that XXX he's made us suffer. A red star is worn on the head. A revolutionary red flag hangs on both sides. What kind of dress is this? Where the red flag points, the dark clouds scatter. The people in the liberated areas overthrow the landlords and turn themselves over. Hey, did the landlords provoke you? The People's Army shares weal and woe with the people. We're here to wipe out Tiger Mountain. Are you bragging?" A burst of happy laughter resounded in the private room. When Du Wei returned to his seat, he found that Shu Ku, who had always been silent across from him, was gone. Looking again at Lang Tao beside him, he looked absent-minded and distraught. A trace of unease flashed across his heart. Seeming to console him, he raised his glass to Lang Tao and said, "Minister Lang, why don't you perform a program too? You sing German songs well. Show us a trick today." But before he finished speaking, Lang Tao's phone rang. "Sorry, I'll take a call." He bowed to Ba Dong and Yan Bei, sitting in the upper seats, and left to walk out of the private room. Seeing that Lang Tao didn't even look at him when he got up, Du Wei couldn't help but feel uneasy. He found that Ba Dong's expression was also a bit abnormal. Besides constantly putting food into Yanbei's bowl, he was staring blankly at the empty seat left by Shuku across the table. Then he found that Wang Sheng, who was sitting next to Jiang Xin, had also disappeared. Du Wei felt even more uneasy in his heart. 4. Love cannot be forgotten. Ba Dong had actually recognized Li Hong as soon as he entered the private room, even though she was wearing a black dress, looking like a nun at first glance, with cold eyes and an arrogant expression. That jade-like face, those beautiful phoenix eyes, and that sensual figure were exactly those of Li Hong, the lover he had lost contact with for many years, whom he had been longing for day and night. However, Du Wei had said at the dinner table that her name was Shu Ku. Why did she have to change to such a strange and vulgar name? What was she trying to escape? Was she trying to cut off ties with her past, including that love affair with him? Ba Dong felt a pang in his heart, and long-sealed memories floated in his mind like a movie. He remembered first seeing Li Hong at a weekend dance party at the Dongjiang Economic Management College. She was wearing a scarlet flared skirt, which, combined with her slender and sensual figure, looked like a beautiful swan, exuding a faint fragrance that Ba Dong couldn't tell whether it was perfume or her body odor. He was mesmerized, standing there stupidly, unable to move his feet. Later, Li Hong declined a large group of boys who were vying to ask her to dance, walked up to him, and those beautiful eyes shone like stars in the dimly lit dance hall. "I think we've met somewhere before," she asked with a smile. "Aren't you going to ask me for a dance?" He immediately woke up from his hypnotized state. Oed reached out his hand and gently grabbed her hand. They slowly walked towards the dance hall under a pair of jealous eyes. Later, their bodies danced to the music. For a while, Ba Dong felt his whole body flying. Later, he didn't know whether he was flying with Li Hong or Li Hong was flying with him. He felt that his and Li Hong's bodies had become one, inseparable from each other. That feeling of men and women being combined was truly magnificent and indescribable. During those 2 years of college study, Ba Dong was intoxicated by this feeling countless times. He thought that he and Li Hong would never be separated in this life until that summer weekend when he brought back the money he made from selling songs at Dongjiang University to his rented house. When he opened the door and saw that mustache, he realized that he had only been dreaming. A beautiful and short dream. Strangely, from then on, he never had another dream. Whenever he slept in the same bed with Yanbei, he couldn't help but compare Li Hong with his wife. His wife's bean sprout-like thin and dry body and Li Hong's plump and sensual body were like a bright and delicate magnolia and a pot of orchids lacking water and nutrition placed side by side, arousing two completely opposite feelings in his body. He felt two forces from different directions were pulling his body, gradually losing its vitality. Helpless, he had to lock himself in the room and masturbate to Li Hong's photos. He felt bewildered and guilty about this, and several times he wanted to kneel in front of his wife and ask her to forgive him, but he never had the courage. "Mr. Ba, why don't you sing a song for everyone?" Du Wei suddenly said. "Didn't you used to like to sing The Clouds of Home? Why don't you sing this one?" As a guest, he should indeed sing a song to thank Deputy Minister Lang and everyone who attended today's welcome dinner. How could Ba Dong not understand this etiquette? He was almost about to agree, but when he raised his head and looked around the dinner table, he found the seat across the way empty. No, Li Hong had left without anyone knowing. Ba Dong's heart suddenly felt empty. At this moment, Deputy Minister Lang got up to answer a phone call. The private room, which had been lively for a while, suddenly became quiet. Wang Sheng and Zong Tianyi, two old friends, were sitting diagonally opposite, separated from the seat where Li Hong had sat only by Ms. Meng Fei, who sang The Red Guards of Honghu Lake. After Ba Dong greeted Wang Sheng and Zong Tianyi when he first entered the private room, he hadn't said anything since. They didn't even come over to offer a toast. No matter what, he was today's VIP, and they were just accompanying guests. They should have toasted him out of courtesy. Ba Dong felt a trace of unhappiness in his heart. but he also understood these two former friends, especially Wang Sheng. He felt that it was inevitable that they would be unbalanced in their hearts regarding his current status and the courtesy he was receiving. He even wanted to take the initiative to offer Wang Sheng a toast. After all, they were childhood friends who had grown up together. But when he saw Wang Sheng's expression, with one eyelid droopy, one single eyelid, one double eyelid, lukewarm, neither humble nor arrogant, he dismissed this idea. He picked up his chopsticks and clamped a small silver fish, a specialty of Niangzhu Lake, for his wife, Yan Bei. The plate in front of Yan Bei was already full of the dishes he had clamped for her. Yan Bei's stomach, like her thin body, ate like a cat, only tasting a small bite of each dish before not eating anymore. At this time, Yan Bei suddenly put down her chopsticks and groaned softly. Her voice was very low, but Ba Dong heard it. He asked with concern, "What's wrong?" "I feel a little uncomfortable," Yan Bei said, holding one hand over her chest, frowning. Seeing that Yan Bei's face was pale and she seemed to be unable to breathe, Ba Dong knew that his wife's asthma had attacked again. "Shall we go back to the room?" Yan Bei nodded with her eyes closed. Ba Dong got up to help her and simultaneously said to Du Wei, "General Manager Du, I'm sorry. My wife is feeling a little unwell and needs to go back to the room to take medicine. Tell Minister Lang when he comes back." Ba Dong helped Yan Bei back to the room and found the breath-relieving tablets he carried with him to give her. Due to her difficulty breathing, Yan Bei's face didn't have a trace of blood and was frighteningly white. She only got a little better after taking the medicine. Ba Dong carefully helped Yan Bei to lie down in bed. Seeing that a layer of fine sweat was breaking out on her forehead, he went to the bathroom to twist a wet towel to wipe her face, and then poured a cup of warm water and brought it over. But Yan Bei turned her mouth to the side and didn't drink it. He had no choice but to put the water glass on the bedside table, hold Yan Bei's hand, and sit silently by the bed. Yan Bei's hand was as thin and small as her body, and the veins under her skin were curved like earthworms, clearly visible. Ba Dong held it gently, as if holding a valuable piece of porcelain, worried it would break if he used a little force. This feeling had lasted throughout his nearly 10 years of marriage with Yan Bei. A feeling of pity would arise in Ba Dong's heart whenever this happened, but he didn't know whether he was pitying himself or his wife. Yan Bei's eyelashes twitched slightly. Ba Dong knew that his wife wasn't asleep. Could she have noticed something unusual at the welcome dinner or recognized Li Hong? Over the years, Ba Dong tried to erase and hide traces of his past, including Li Hong from Yan Bei. He only occasionally uncovered a corner of his past life when alone. But Yan Bei had an almost morbid sensitivity that most women didn't have. Any bit of a clue could trigger her vigilance and suspicion. This time, it was impossible for her not to notice anything. Otherwise, why would she suddenly fall ill after Li Hong left the private room? Of course, perhaps the humid and rainy climate in the south made Yan Bei, who had grown up in the north, feel out of sorts. Before dinner, she ran alone to the lake for a walk. The colorful pollen at the lake's viewing platform was most likely to trigger her asthma. But whatever the reason, it made Ba Dong feel uneasy. He had rarely gone out with his wife for so many years. The number of times he had traveled outside Beijing could be counted on his fingers. The main reason was his wife's asthma. Before setting off this time, Hong Tai Hang had repeatedly told him on the phone to take good care of Yan Bei's health. Hong Tai Hang's tone was as if he was not going out on a trip with his wife as a husband, but just as a servant of his sister. Yan Bei's hand was so cold that Ba Dong felt as if he were holding the hand of a dead person. He couldn't help but think of another hand, whole, slender, gentle, and warm. A book said that you can feel the entirety of a woman's body from her hand. Whenever Ba Dong held Li Hong's hand, he felt a strong tremor like an electric shock, as if it wasn't two hands holding each other but two bodies embracing and engaging. He had never had this feeling when holding Yan Bei's hand. The image of Li Hong's face at the dinner table floated up in his mind again, sometimes far away, sometimes near, sometimes clear, sometimes blurred, giving him a sense of time and space intertwining. He didn't expect that Li Hong, whom he had seen after so many years, had not only become so unfamiliar but had even changed her name. But no matter how she changed, her eyes would not change. When he met those cold, melancholy yet still beautiful eyes across the large dining table, it was as if two flints collided in the vast universe, emitting sparks that perhaps only the two could see. His eyes suddenly blurred. Not letting his wife notice, he quickly wiped his eyes with a napkin. But when he opened his eyes again, Li Hong had suddenly disappeared. Why did she leave midway? Was it to avoid him, or was there some other reason? Shu Ku, Secretary General of the Yuanji Cultural Research Association, Du Wei introduced Li Hong at the dinner table. Why would she come to this small island? Why would she change such a vulgar name for herself? Many questions popped up in Ba Dong's mind, like a string of bubbles. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door. Ba Dong was awakened from his chaotic thoughts. Seeing Yan Bei was asleep, he tiptoed up to open the door. Du Wei was standing at the door. "Is Ms. Hong feeling better?" Du Wei's voice carried the concern and consideration that a host should have. "To welcome you, I had the Resort Hotel Art Troupe specially prepare a program for you to watch." "Oh, thank you. My wife is not feeling well, and I'm afraid she won't be able to go." Ba Dong spread his hands in regret. Seeing that Du Wei was a bit disappointed, he thought that he had been busy organizing things from the airport until now and felt a little bad, so he made a gesture. "Come in and sit for a while." Du Wei seemed to have something to say to him and didn't refuse. Ba Dong accompanied him to sit down in the living room, and Du Wei said, "Deputy Minister Lang was originally going to accompany you to watch the performance, but something came up at home, and he went back. His father-in-law is ill. He entrusted me to accompany you on a tour of Phoenix Island these 2 days." "Oh, thank you, Deputy Minister Lang," Ba Dong said while expressing his gratitude, his mind wandering to the previous question. Why would Li Hong change her name to Shu Ku? "Deputy Minister Lang also asked me to convey his greetings to Mr. Hong Tai Hong. If there is a chance, he is willing to make a special trip to Beijing to visit Mr. Hong Tai Hong." Okay, I will definitely tell him," Ba Dong stammered. "Mr. Ba, regarding the listing of Popular Art Mudia Group, please take the trouble to say a few good words in front of Mr. Hong." "That's natural. We're townspeople," Ba Dong said. He knew that Du Wei really intended to invite him and Yan Bei to visit Phoenix Island. At first, he didn't want to come, but he couldn't resist Yan Bei, and his cousin Song Xiaofan instigated it. Later, even Hong Tai Hong spoke. "You've been married for so many years. Haven't you taken Yan Bei back to your hometown? Just take her for a trip." The big brother-in-law still had a commanding tone, but it sounded like the intimacy between family members. "As for business matters, you and Yan Bei discuss and decide. You don't have to ask me for instructions on everything." As for what needed to be asked for instructions and what didn't need to be asked for instructions, Hong Tai Hong didn't make it clear. But in Ba Dong's understanding, major events like the operation of the listing of Popular Art Group were definitely not included, and he didn't have the ability to do it either. Hong Tai Hong had to handle it personally. "The province is going to build an art village on Phoenix Island, and I am a member of the construction team." Du Wei seemed to be telling him a major secret and said, "We are preparing to invite a group of well-known artists from all over the country, including film and television directors, screenwriters, writers, and painters, to move into the art village. The art projects created by the resident artists are exempt from taxes. In addition, each resident artist can buy a villa in the art village at a low price as a studio and own all property rights. Deputy Minister Lang invites you and Ms. Hong to be the first artists to move into the art village. What do you think?" If it had been before, Ba Dong might have had no interest in such things, but at this moment, his heart stirred. Due to Li Hong's appearance, this unfamiliar island seemed to have some kind of connection with him. He didn't show this secret thought to Du Wei, but casually asked, "Does your group also invest in this art village?" "No, The planning and management of the art village are uniformly led by the Provincial Party Committee Propaganda Department and Deputy Minister Lang. Our group is only participating in the investment of some of the projects. Okay, I'll discuss it with my wife, Ba Dong said, and as if to cover up something, he changed the subject and asked, "How do you plan your trip for the next 2 days?" Du Wei took out a small notebook from his pocket and said in a reporting tone while reading it, "It's like this. In the morning, we will visit the farm, take a boat trip to Niangzhu Lake in the afternoon, and go to Xiaolong Mountain to visit Wugong Shrine the day after tomorrow. My wife is not feeling well. Can we change tomorrow afternoon's activities to a visit to Xiaolong Mountain? I heard that there is a master in Wugong Shrine who can treat many difficult and complicated diseases. I would like to accompany my wife to ask the master to take a look." "Oh, of course," Du Wei said happily. "That master is my godfather. Wang Sheng and Zhong Tianyi both know about it." When he mentioned Wang Sheng, Ba Dong frowned slightly. "How did my childhood friend perform under your command?" "Well, he's a graduate student from Dongjiang University, after all." Du Wei laughed. "It's just that he had a bit of a strange temper. You two had a good relationship when you were kids, right?" Ba Dong said self-deprecatingly, "Wang Sheng's academic performance had always been better than mine, and his father was my father's leader, so he had always looked down on me." "Ha ha ha, that's right. Men of letters always think highly of themselves." Du Wei smiled. "Boss Ba, with your current status, I'm afraid Wang Sheng won't even have time to curry favor with you, right? He is your subordinate. Do you think he is the kind of person who likes to curry favor with others?" Ba Dong asked back. Du Wei was speechless for a moment, looked at Ba Dong, and seemed to be worried about something, so he did not say anything. After a while, Ba Dong remembered something and said, "In a few days, I will accompany my wife back to my hometown in Chuzhou to visit my relatives. I hope Mr. Du would take care of it." "Oh, I have already arranged this," Du Wei said. "I plan to let the group's deputy general manager Yan Kui accompany you back to Chuzhou." Perhaps because he saw that Ba Dong didn't look very well, Du Wei put away his notebook, stood up, and said goodbye. "Boss Ba, you should go to bed early. If you need anything, call me. I'll be there whenever you call." Du Wei was a little too attentive but also sincere. Looking at his hurriedly leaving back, Ba Dong felt a little grateful. This is indeed an extremely capable and shrewd person, he thought, and suddenly a question popped up. Does Du Wei know why Li Hong changed her name to Shu Ku? Was Li Hong's appearance today purely accidental, or was it deliberately arranged by him? 5. Seeking and wandering. During the welcome dinner, Wang Sheng had spoken little apart from chatting with Zhong Tianyi. He didn't even join in the fun when everyone was vying to offer Ba Dong and Yan Bei toasts. Although he had long heard that Ba Dong had been doing well in Beijing these years and had married a wife from a general's family, and Du Wei also praised Ba Dong whenever he mentioned him, when he saw this childhood friend enjoying all the honor and being treated like a moon surrounded by stars at the dinner, he still couldn't hide the discomfort in his heart. Jealousy? Envy? Disappointment? It was impossible to know. Of course, another reason was that he had unexpectedly met Li Hong. Since graduating from Dongjiang University, Wang Sheng had never seen the beautiful and capable president of the Langtaosha Literary Club again. He had heard of Li Hong's unfortunate experiences from Gujiang. At that time, he had also sighed with regret that Li Hong's promising future had been ruined because of her parents' affairs. He never expected to meet Li Hong here. Although she had changed her name, Wang Sheng recognized her as soon as she and Meng Fei walked into the private room. Li Hong had changed too much. Wearing a black dress and looking cold, she was completely different from the talented woman in the Chinese department who used to wear a red flared skirt and exude fiery enthusiasm. Several times Wang Sheng felt Li Hong's gaze fall on him. He felt that Li Hong had recognized him and couldn't help but want to take the initiative to greet her. But each time, Li Hong turned her gaze away as if she didn't know him. "You've mistaken me. My name is Shu Ku." Wang Sheng clearly heard Li Hong say this to Lang Tao, Deputy Minister Lang. She and Lang Tao had once been a couple, The rumors about them had been widespread on the Dongda campus. He saw Lang Tao's face turn red and white as if doused with a bucket of cold water, and he didn't come back to his senses for a long time. He didn't know when Li Hong, Shu Ku, had left. Not long after Li Hong left, Lang Tao also hurriedly left. Later, Ba Dong also helped his wife leave the private room and return to the hotel. This sudden change made Du Wei, who was hosting the dinner, feel slightly surprised and disappointed. Wang Sheng saw him sitting there silently with a stern face from afar, not even paying attention when Yan Kui went over to offer him a toast. An embarrassing cold field appeared in the private room. Just then, Zhong Tianyi, who had been almost silent except for drinking, suddenly stood up and walked out. Sitting beside him, Meng Fei called, "Old Zhong, where are you going?" Zhong Tianyi said without turning his head, "Where am I going? Home!" His tone was a bit stiff. When he reached the private room door, he suddenly stopped, turned around, and shouted at Meng Fei, Aren't you coming home with me?" Meng Fei held up her goblet, took a small sip of red wine, and said without looking up, "I have a performance tonight." Zhong Tianyi sneered and said, "You only care about your performance and never care about your daughter." Hearing this sentence, Meng Fei's shoulders, wearing her performance costume, trembled slightly. After a moment's pause, she suddenly turned her face and shouted at Zhong Tianyi, "If you want to say something, just say it clearly. Don't beat around the bush." Zhong Tianyi seemed angered by Meng Fei's words. He suddenly turned back, walked behind Meng Fei, grabbed her hand, and shouted in a suppressed voice, "Go! Come home with me! Don't do this here!" He looked terrifying, as if he was about to hit someone. Meng Fei struggled hard, shouting as she struggled, "Don't touch me! What right do you have to order me?" The two were entangled together in a mess. Wang Sheng was very familiar with both Zhong Tianyi and Meng Fei. In his impression, the couple's relationship had always been good. This was the first time he had seen them arguing in public, and he was a little unable to react. Helpless, he turned his gaze to Du Wei, who was hosting today's dinner. Zhong Tianyi and Meng Fei's quarrel clearly angered Du Wei. He suddenly stood up and slammed the glass in his hand hard on the ground. There was a loud bang, and the glass and the red wine in the glass burst and splashed, making a crisp sound like a bomb exploding. Jiang Xin and Yan Kui, who were holding their wine glasses and were about to toast him, were startled. Everyone in the private room was stunned. Before people could recover, Du Wei left in a huff with a livid face. Wang Sheng didn't know how he walked out of the private room. It was almost dark when he left the resort hotel. In front of the hotel was a large green lawn covered with red, white, and blue tulips, one clump here, one clump there, looking particularly enchanting in the dim dusk. From the outside, the resort hotel looked like a blooming lotus flower lying horizontally at the southern end of Phoenix Island. Next to it was the newly built sightseeing agricultural garden, divided into several parts, such as the picking, farming, fishing, and picnic forest. When Wang Sheng came to the island during the day, he also saw that there were endless streams of tourists in the agricultural garden. Men, women, adults, and children dressed as city dwellers. After experiencing rural life, many people walked out of the sightseeing agricultural garden carrying plastic bags full of picked fruits, looking satisfied. The group used to organize employees for outings and come to Phoenix Island for sightseeing. Jiang Xin led the team, but Wang Sheng didn't participate. Afterward, Jiang Xin brought back a few honey peaches that had been picked from the sightseeing agricultural garden to give him a taste, and they were big and sweet. At this moment, Wang Sheng came out of the resort hotel and walked on the path beside the sightseeing agricultural garden. Through the luxuriant hibiscus hedge wall, he could vaguely see that the peach branches in the garden were lush and leafy. When the evening breeze blew, the peaches hidden among the branches shone like stars, very bright and lovely. It was April now. In another month or so, around the Dragon Boat Festival, the peaches would ripen, and the sightseeing agricultural garden would usher in another wave of picking peaks. A cool evening breeze blew over his face, and Wang Sheng's mind became much clearer, gradually forgetting everything that had happened at the resort hotel earlier. Following that wisp of hibiscus fragrance, he picked a trumpet-shaped hibiscus flower from the hedge wall and smelled it. The dusk was getting thicker and thicker, pouring in like a tide from all directions. The asphalt path around the sightseeing agricultural garden extended forward like a winding stream. He walked along the stream as if searching for something, all the way from the west side of Phoenix Island to the east side. Along the way were neatly trimmed lawns, flower beds, and forests. Bees were flying, butterflies were dancing, and flowers were blooming. It was as beautiful as a city park, but the more it was like this, the more Wang Sheng felt alienated. He walked through most of the island without realizing it. He didn't see a single farmhouse, a single field, or a single farmer or fisherman. In the past, on Phoenix Island, every few steps, you could see a few farmhouses that were old but had a rural charm, fields full of soybeans, sorghum, and cotton, local people busy in the fields, fishermen applying tung oil to the fishing boats that were dragged ashore from the lake, and dried, salted fish. But now, they were all gone. Everything had been cleaned up as if it were a harvested field. Where had those people, those farmhouses, and those fields gone? In just over 10 years, could an island have become so unrecognizable? Wang Sheng felt a pang of melancholy. He faintly heard the roar of the lake water lapping against the shore, one wave after another, very rhythmic. The land under his feet was shaking slightly, as if he were on a bumpy boat. He realized that he had reached the lake. He could vaguely see a grove of tun trees not far ahead in the haze. This was the only kind of tree he had seen on the island before. As soon as he saw those round tun leaves like coins and smelled the familiar scent of tun, a heat wave surged in Wang Sheng's heart. He took a few quick steps, walked through the tun grove, and sure enough, he saw that small grave and the tombstone in front of it, like a mushroom lying quietly there, with its back to the island and facing the vast Niangzhu Lake. Not far opposite was that even smaller island, Jianjiao Island. Wang Sheng squatted in front of that grave, gently brushing away the dust on the tombstone, and faintly saw a line of words on it. Tomb of Tian Fang, respectfully erected by niece Tian Qingqing. The handwriting was already a bit blurred, but in Wang Sheng's heart, these few words were as clear as Tian Fang's innocent face and clear eyes. The scene of him, the old principal, and Tian Qingqing coming to sweep Tian Fang's grave that year appeared before his eyes. And when he recalled those sentences in Tian Fang's diary, tears couldn't help but wet his eyes. Wang Sheng had last seen the old principal several years ago. The old principal visited the provincial capital to attend the Provincial Advanced Rural Education Representatives meeting. He saw the list of representatives attending the meeting in the Dongjiang Daily, so he went to the hotel to visit the old principal and ran into Uncle Luo Zhang. The two old friends chatted warmly and were very happy to see him. It was winter, and the weather was freezing, with temperatures dropping below zero. He treated the two old men to a hot pot at the Three Kingdoms City next to the hotel. When he left, the old principal told him that Tian Qingqing had been admitted to high school and was studying at Niangzhu Lake No. 1 Middle School. Her grades were among the top in her class. Tian Qingqing will have no problem getting into college at this rate. Judging from the old principal's kind and proud expression, it was as if he were talking about his own daughter or granddaughter. Although the old principal didn't mention Tian Fang's name, Wang Sheng could feel Tian Fang's presence everywhere in that sad look in his eyes. When he left, the old principal also asked about his personal affairs. When he heard he was still single, he sighed softly, and those rough palms pressed on his shoulders, lingering for a long time. Last spring, the popular art magazine held a writing conference at the Niangzhu Lake Hotel. During a break in the conference, Wang Sheng went to No. 1 Middle School. When he saw Tian Qingqing walking out of the classroom towards him, the two small braids tied with red silk ribbons on her head swayed, resembling Tian Fang when he first saw her in the community teacher class at Niangzhu Normal School. Tian Qingqing recognized him at a glance when she walked up to him, A blush flashed across her delicate face, and she lowered her head after calling out, "Uncle Wang." Wang Sheng found that Tian Qingqing's eyes were red, knowing that she was thinking of her aunt Tian Fang. Tian Qingqing was in class, and Wang Sheng didn't want to take up too much of her time, so he told her about meeting the old principal in the provincial capital and asked her if she had any difficulties and whether she often went back to Phoenix Island. Tian Qingqing said she hadn't returned to Phoenix Island for over half a year. Wang Sheng asked why. Tian Qingqing hesitated before saying that Phoenix Island had become a tourist development zone and that the island's residents, including Phoenix Elementary School, had been relocated to Chengguan town. Although Wang Sheng had long known that Phoenix Island had been transformed into a tourist island, he was still a bit surprised to hear this news and paused for a moment before asking, "Did the old principal also move to Chengguan?" Tian Qingqing shook her head and said, "The old principal was unwilling to relocate. He had a big fight with Branch Secretary Changhai Uncle over this matter and resigned." "Then, where is the old principal now?" "He's still on the island, guarding the martyrs' cemetery." Wang Sheng didn't say anything for a long time. When he left, he put a craft paper envelope from the editorial department of popular art into Tian Qingqing's hands with 1,000 yuan in it. At this time, Phoenix Island was completely shrouded in night. The top of Wang Sheng's head felt damp, not knowing if it was night fog or rain. The music from the nightclub at the resort hotel came from afar. The art troupe's performance had probably begun. Wang Sheng was walking aimlessly, unable to distinguish east, west, south, or north. He was just moving forward according to his feelings, like a wandering soul roaming in the wilderness, not knowing where he came from or where he was going. After an unknown amount of time, Wang Sheng found that he had come to the foot of Xiaolong Mountain. This was no longer the barren mountain 10 years ago, with thorns and rocks everywhere. It was now full of fragrant grass, lush trees, and blooming flowers, like a well-planned mountain park. An asphalt road like a silk ribbon snaked from the dock on the lake to the top of the mountain. Looking from afar, the Wugong Shrine in the dusk was as majestic as a palace, brightly lit, illuminating the entire mountain as if it were daytime. Although Wang Sheng had never been to the Wugong Shrine, he knew that its owner was Du Wei's godfather, Wu Bozhong, who used to run a clinic in P-Town and was now a well-known Yuanji Gong master. Behind Xiaolong Mountain was the Martyrs' Cemetery. A high cement wall separated it and the Wugong Shrine into two worlds. Compared with the magnificent, brightly lit Wugong Shrine, the Martyrs' Cemetery seemed so dilapidated and desolate, like an abandoned old fishing boat. After sweeping Tianfang's grave that time, Wang Sheng had followed the old principal to the Martyrs' Cemetery to pay his respects. He had specially picked a bunch of winter springs and placed them in front of Bai Shui's tomb. The old principal said this was the flower Luo Zheng had dedicated to Bai Shui. Every Qingming festival, he comes to the Martyrs' Cemetery to sweep the graves and always dedicates a bouquet of roses to Bai Shu, the old principal said. At this moment, Wang Sheng seemed to hear the old principal's voice in his ears. He followed the foot of the mountain around to the cemetery and saw that the stone house on one side of the gate was half closed and a faint light shone from inside. He walked to the door and immediately saw that familiar figure. "Old principal!" The old principal was smoking in the house. The copper pipe was flashing like a firefly. The gray hair, illuminated by the light, looked like a bundle of embers about to burn out, illuminating the four walls of the stone house with mottled light. "You've come..." The old principal didn't seem surprised at Wang Sheng's appearance, as if he had just been there yesterday. "Yes, I came to the resort hotel to participate in an event, and came to see you, by the way," Wang Sheng said. "I went to Tianfang's grave just now. It's been a long time since I came to see her." The old principal took out his copper pipe, lifted his eyelids, and glanced at Wang Sheng, muttering vaguely, "It's not about how many times you see her, as long as you haven't forgotten her." Wang Sheng said, "I heard from Qingqing that the residents of the island and the elementary school have been relocated to Chengguan. Only you haven't gone." "I can't leave the island," the old principal said. "I can't abandon them." When he said them, he glanced towards the cemetery outside. Wang Sheng understood that the them that the old principal was talking about were the martyrs who were resting in the cemetery, and a feeling of emotion rose in his heart. At this moment, a gust of wind came in through the crack in the door, and the dim oil lamp was extinguished with a poof. The stone house suddenly became dark. After a rustling sound, the old principal lit a match and relit the oil lamp. Under the dim light, the old principal's face looked so withered and thin, and every wrinkle on his forehead seemed to have been carved with a knife, looking much older than the last time he was at a meeting in the provincial capital. Wang Sheng looked at the oil lamp, which was covered with dirt, and asked with curiosity, "Why don't you use an electric light?" "I would like to use it," the old principal said sneakily, "but that dirty guy, He-san, cut off the power line for me." "He-san? Who is that?" "Nie Changhai's cousin, the security minister of Wugong Shrine and the militia company commander on the island." The old principal squeezed out a sentence between his teeth. "A barbaric guy. Why would he cut off the power line? Why?" The old principal glared at Wang Sheng as if he had said something inappropriate. "For no reason. They don't want me to stay on the island thinking I'm getting in their way." The old principal stamped his feet, and the beard on his chin shook. Wang Sheng remembered what Tian Qingqing had said. "So, you and Secretary Ni really fell out?" "He's now completely wearing the same pants as that Wu Bozhong. The two of them have sold Phoenix Island together." The old principal's eyes seemed to be burning with fire. "They not only sold out the island's land, but also embezzled the land compensation money from everyone. They won't even let the dead rest. They also want to relocate the Martyrs' Cemetery to Jianjiao Island. Tell me, can I let them succeed?" The old principal's fiery eyes turned to Wang Sheng, as if he wanted him to answer. Wang Sheng didn't know what to say. He tried to comfort the old principal, but facing the old man's firm and stern face, he felt that any comfort seemed light and even unnecessary. He felt a little sad, not only because of those martyrs in the cemetery, but also because of Tian Fang. Returning to the resort hotel, Wang Sheng saw Du Wei pacing in the lobby, looking anxious. As soon as he saw him, he walked over and said, "Where did you go? I asked Jiang Xin and Yan Kui to look for you everywhere. I wanted you to go and accompany Mr. Ba to watch the show, but they couldn't find you anywhere." "Oh, I took a walk around Xiaolong Mountain." Hearing this, Du Wei asked suspiciously, "Went to Xiaolong Mountain. Did you go to the Wugong Shrine to find Shuku?" Du Wei's words reminded Wang Sheng. He remembered that Shuku Li Hong was the Secretary General of the Yuanji Cultural Research Association, and that he should have gone to see her while he was there. Wang Sheng thought this, but asked back, "That Shuku you're talking about, I don't know her. Why would I go to find her?" Du Wei knew very well that Wang Sheng was deliberately playing dumb, but he couldn't find the right words. He was temporarily stunned.